It begins with M and ends with ick. Right. All right. Now, this particular planetary phenomena, environmental phenomena, let's say, is progressively activating, and it's going to create a system of what are called holographic inserts on a mass level. That's where masses of people are seeing things, hearing things, having connection with things through their own heads, thinking it's their higher self, because it's being beamed in on the D1 and D2 frequency subbands, where the frequency comes in and whatever program, just like the Matrix movie, whatever program is carried on it is what the people experience sensually. Now, we've warned about these in the Voyagers books since they first came out. This information was there because it's something that happened in a place called Parallel Earth. I won't go into what's happened to Parallel Earth since that time, when those books began to tell the story about what holographic inserts can do. But they are beginning the process of being activated on this planet. The protection against them is to not have receivers in your shields or in your fields that will pick up those transmissions, because otherwise you're not going to be able to tell which is yours and which is the artificial one coming in. This is what's happening to part of the people who used to be part of this group at this point. I mean, they're being told all sorts of things like test subjects, like I'm a clone and actually the real me lives in France, and I mean, all this stuff. This wacky stuff, these are test jobs. They explained a long time ago that one of the test jobs of this system before it was fully activated, didn't have the activation level that it got last August in 2003, but before that, they said Bosnia was a test run, the first round of Bosnia. These are psychotronic pulsing technologies that go right through the planetary grids. They travel through electrical lines, they travel without electrical lines through the planetary grid lines, and they affect the biofields, literally the atomic structure of human and non-human forms as well. So even plants and things are affected by these. This program, the reason why we're getting it in kind of accelerated form is because we have to head this off at the pass, or we're not going to be able to tell the difference ourselves. So it's time that we learn to what these receivers are in our bodies and how to shut them off. The receivers are the Shona distortion field crystal shapes. Think of big ugly dodecahedrons with flat caps and no capstones at a very strange angle hanging around your body, and you'll get an idea of what a Shona distortion field is. And you'll also get an idea about what some people are trying to pass off as sacred geometry. It isn't sacred, some of the things that are being taught. It's literally the opposite. So through this workshop, what I want to do is run through like a freight train, probably, the information that a lot of you have seen and some of you may not have seen at all. You see where the pieces fit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. So the people that are just coming from Kathara 1, you can see a chain of information that connects, that shows you where body things are located, how certain processes in the anatomy work, and realize that if it's going too fast, that's okay. There's still, this information is already out there. It's on various different tape sets. It's not that you're going to lose it. And it isn't that it doesn't make sense, because there's a huge amount of detail with all of these little parts that you see. This information took us about 3 years to compile. Slowly, one workshop would be about one piece and then another workshop about another. Well, they're all being run into one. So you can see where that information directly connects in to the next level, which is understanding what your lodum is and reclaiming your lodum and your bio-imprint. Because this is about what some people refer to as your biocomputer. The lodum crystals are the biocomputer. They are what run the biological programs. We have freed our minds, a lot of us have, in the last 3 years, from the distortion and twisted belief systems that have been intentionally seeded here in order to make sure we didn't remember who we were and didn't have any idea what was actually taking place on the planet. We've reclaimed the mental body. We've reclaimed a lot of our emotional body, a lot of us have. But the one that's standing in between us and freedom is the physical body. A lot of people on this planet for very many centuries and actually thousands of years have looked forward to the point of transition called death, because it was a point where they could return to at least the freedom level they knew before they incarnated here. When you incarnate here, it's like lights out, shades down, don't remember who you are, don't remember anything. And when you start to get little glimmers that it used to be different, when you start to get little bits of incarnational memory, when you start to remember, even sense that you came from somewhere else and you were somebody before you got here, and you can't access that or touch it, when the only time you can touch it is sometimes in the dream state, where yes, there you can fly. and you can instantly manifest things, and you can walk through walls, and you feel free, and you can hear the air sing around you because you can hear the atomic tones of the molecules that you coexist with. These states of being are real, and they can be experienced physically, and in certain frequency bands they are experienced physically. They are the reality physically. What we call those dream realities, those ecstatic dream realities, can't come here because of the distortion fields presently here. As we progressively unplug ourselves from those distortion fields, we will progressively get more of those senses turned back on. We will start to see those levels of frequency in the environments that we're in. One of the things that's been really funny lately, it's happened in about the last month and a half, it's been really, really strong. Almost every night before I go to sleep, I lay down, and I always sleep with the fan on because it keeps the air circulating in the room. And, fans make noise, and you hear that kind of like electrical, noise of the fan. Well, it first started, I thought I was just hearing weird sound harmonics bouncing off the walls because I was starting to hear what sounded like choirs. And I could have swore it was the fan, right? So, all right, it's just the fan, whatever. And then for like a week or so, it's not just the fan again. I was kind of thinking, oh, that's kind of nice, actually, the fan singing, but not taking it seriously, just a 3D, it's a very 3D explanation, and it sounded right to me. Then it started where there were male and female voices in it, many of them, some doing high, very intricate type of sounds, others doing low bass tones. I'm thinking, this fan is very talented. And then I was working on the work one day in the daytime without the fan, and I could hear it coming from the other room, the bedroom, and the fan wasn't on. Next, I heard it coming through the refrigerator lines. You know how the refrigerators hum? I was working in the kitchen, and I was hearing it come. Same type of songs, but they always change. It's not just a constant There is singing happening, and it happened so often, and it was so distinct. It progressively got more distinct. I realized I was starting to pick up on some different frequency bands. My senses were opening in the 3D level. The songs that we're hearing have to do with stuff we'll talk about more of in California, which are called the Adandrea, which are a group of the Iani. They're actually the races that seeded the Iani races. So they're beginning to sing their tones here. That means the frequencies. What we're hearing is the light. Light has sound. So as the light begins to come in, the living light, we will begin to hear it first before we can even see it. So it was one of the little things that when we start to get the Shona fields out of the way and start to bring enough of the higher frequencies in, the Christic frequencies, we will begin to hear the light, and eventually we'll begin to see it and what forms and 3D environments manifest through it. This is the beginning. So what I'm going to do is go through, and if any of you are so sick of these graphs that you want to leave, I don't blame you, but I've put them in a sequence, again, with alterations and kind of consolidated information. What's important to do is ask yourselves, okay, even if you've been through these programs for a while now, Kathara was the first program we introduced. That was a long time ago. It seems like light years away. If you've followed the programs of planetary stewardship, the advanced accelerated ones that kept giving more mechanics and more mechanics and more mechanics on top of mechanics, where you got to go back and say, what was in Kathara 1? Oh yeah, we have a Kathara grid, a Maharic seal, a Maharic shield, and those things. When you look at the difference from how fast the information we moved through in the last 3-year period from where Kathara 1 left off, there's this huge gap. Kathara 2, 3, the foundations, has to fill that gap. It has to fill the gap if you're going to understand what it is you learned, why it applies, and how that applies to Kathara healing, where this all fits together. It also, if you ever decide you want to teach this or even to share the information with someone, it'll show you how to put in a nutshell something that's actually very, very complicated and show it simply enough where someone can understand it. You might want to go through the graphs slower than I'm going to go through them. All right. So we'll start with, hello, number 1, please. These are just recap graphs of, now what I tend to do is I make what I call recap or review ones of stuff we've covered so we can remember. They have real tiny print. They're like micrographs. They're the pages that we went through in big form in other programs that showed certain things and their connections, where I put them together so you can see the connections, and those pages exist someplace else in big form, and if you really wanted to, once you get these in a chart pack, you can blow them up and see what they say, but most of you will have them from some other program. So these are just to remind us where we came from to see where we left off there and how we're going to link in through this huge amount of information to the new information, which is really advanced information, not just for Kathara, but for the planetary grid workers as well. So this is the next level for both. And it kind of will even out the understanding and frequency balance between people just coming in on the healing note and other people who've been working the stewardship initiative. So let me see. Can I use these? Back to the trusty pointer. Okay. Simply put, in Kathara 1, we covered Partikai, Partikai, Particum. We learned about Partikai phasing, how flash line sequences of Partikai formed Partikai grids, formed Helon codes, and that these are the basis of scalar standing wave templates that form the blueprints of matter and dimensionality. So all dimensional frequency expresses into manifestation first through Partikai grids, and Partikai grids are what form shields. Now, the Partikai grids are simply scalar standing waves. If you picture little standing waves of light that flash on into light, and then they flash off into sound or vibration. So they oscillate into light, and then they flash off into vibration. They are standing, which means they're not waves that go here from here to here. They stand there, and they flash on and off. So therefore, they're pulsing waves. Flash lines are pulse lines. So if you want to think about what is a flash line, think about a heartbeat. Think about on every heartbeat a pulse of energy coming into your body. It's not that some liquid pours down from the sky and runs it through your body. You have liquid in your body, but it's not that kind. It's more like pulse on, energy comes in, pulse on. So if you can think of flash lines in that frame, it'll help you understand them better. It'll also help tomorrow when we go into understanding rhythms, what are called base shield rhythms, because these are pulsing rhythms that have to do with what are called shield clocks that we'll learn a little bit about. And shield clocks have to do with what's called our genetic time codes. Genetic time codes are portions of the DNA template and things that manifest in the chemical DNA that keep one oriented to certain time waves on the planet. Now, the information in California is going to go into the larger picture of time waves. What is a time wave? Sorry I asked, was my response to that one. We'll talk a little bit about them tomorrow when we introduce literally the process that energy goes through in manifesting, from going from one set of dimensional frequencies into another. There's something called the transfiguration point, and it's through the transfiguration point that light and sound waves from various dimensional bands blend together and come in through very specific rhythms to form what we call manifestation. This involves something called the ethos field, which is the etheric field in the particum universe. There's something called the Eros field, which is the etheric field in the antiparticle universe. So there's a lot of information to learn. If we really want to understand how manifestation takes place, which is important if you're going to understand what part of your fields have been messed up with these Shona fields, and you want to understand how light is supposed to work. Light is the carrier of time waves, and if light is messed up on a planet or in a body, so are the time pulses. What we're going to be doing with base shield bonding is resetting the organic time pulse in our shields, in our Merkabas, in our DNA, where we begin to receive the natural time waves that our bodies were meant, our immortal bodies were meant to function on. So it's kind of exciting when we look at it that way, but the stuff is complex when we get into time waves and things. So we'll just, in this particular workshop, we'll stick with the local environment instead of going planetary with time waves and time shifts and all that stuff that we started to introduce before. We'll stick with biology, interdimensional biology. So we have Partikai, Partikai, Particum form scalar grids. Scalar grids form first the universal shield, which is one 15-dimensional time matrix, which we will learn that there are many of, and we exist down in here, which is called harmonic universe 1. We have sets of 3 dimensions that form a 3-dimensional harmonic universe. In one 15-dimensional system, we have 5 sets of 3 dimensions, and that means 5 harmonic universes and a primal light and sound field that has 3 levels, the triadic, the polaric, and the eckatic. All right, we go from there into down here. This is showing simply this diagram with, first of all, the Kathara grid, which is the core density template, 12-dimensional density template, and up above it is a squashed up little Kathara grid, which has 12 more points. That represents the primal Kathara grid that carries the frequencies of the primal light and sound fields. So it is through the Kathara grid structure, which is a shields structure, that the frequencies from here in this form travel through the scalar standing wave grids and pulse through into progressive manifestation. We've also learned in Kathara 1 that we have levels of identity stationed in each of those dimensional, harmonic universe dimensional bands. We have the incarnate identity down here in dimensions 1, 2, 3. We have the soul in what's called density 2, dimensions 4, 5, 6. We have the oversoul in dimensions 7, 8, and 9, which is density 3. We have our avatar, our Christos avatar self, in dimensions 10, 11, and 12, which is harmonic universe 4. And we have our Rishi self in dimensions 13, 14, and 15 in the primal light fields. These are, where is your soul? That's where your soul is. It's right down here, but you have lots more up above it. We have what we're going to learn, another level of what you could call density. We call it density 6. This is when we go out of the 15-dimensional structure and into what structure that is a part of. This is when, on the larger level, we got into something called the Ecka maps of the God world gates. Now, on a microcosmic level of your biology, you have the exact same maps as the blueprints for your own multidimensional identity above 15-dimensional reality. So we're going to show the Ecka maps that some of you know what they are. We're going to show them in context of body parts, as opposed to something external out from you that you can go find a spot and go through a stargate and go through them. These are internal. This is a part of your anatomy. When you understand that, you can begin to understand some of the things that we're going to do tomorrow and some of the things that we did yesterday, of going to the Etheric flame, these chambers that we talk about. You'll start to understand where these places are, for they're both within you, inside of you, and outside of you as well in the hologram. So these are just basic rundown. Next one, please. And I'm going fast just so we can get to more meaty stuff. All right, so if I'm losing anyone, if I'm desperately losing anyone, and anybody that's just started out, please just kind of like raise your hand and don't be embarrassed, and I'll kind of like slow it down and try to move around it, because I don't want to lose anyone as far as understanding, because it can be very frustrating sitting there listening to somebody talk a mile a minute, pointing at graphs that you have no idea what that is, and it can be frustrating. And if you cared enough to come because you wanted to learn, I care enough to slow them down enough that you can learn. So just let me know if that needs to happen, all right? And don't be embarrassed that anybody's going to think you're slow or anything, okay? All right. Now, we learned of the primary life force currents in Kathara 1. We learned the basic primary wavelength scale, which is the color scale of each dimensional frequency band. We also learned that each dimensional frequency band has 12 sub-frequency bands. The 12 sub-frequency bands of each dimension would also have this color run, this wavelength run, but in subharmonic form. So D1 would be the red wavelength. It would also have within it all of these smaller wavelengths, all right? So we have 12 sub-frequency bands in each of the dimensions that follow the same wavelength schedule as the primary dimensions do. This becomes important when we're directing frequency. This is why we're specific when we use meditations. Use this color this and move it to that color that. It's frequency we're directing. When we use color, we're using it to pick very specific frequencies. In Kathara 1, we learned about triadic phase currents. The triadic phase currents are simply combinations of the 15-dimensional currents that allow for the seals that exist in the body between different density levels to open, so the currents from the higher dimensions are able to flow down into the density body down here. We've learned that through opening the seals in the body, which we'll look at in a minute, that these currents here progressively can embody within the physical form. Most healing modalities, in fact, just about all of them except Reiki, which taps in a little bit into a certain part of the D4 frequency band, most of them are simply using D1, 2, and 3 wavelength current. When they're using different colors and saying, oh, it's D7 frequency, no, it's not. What they're using are the 7 subharmonic frequencies. They're using the smaller frequency bands, because if they're not using a Maharic D12 current to open the seals, they're not going to get those frequencies down here from up in these higher dimensional frequency bands, because there are seals, crystal seals in the shields and in the body that have to open. Otherwise, they stay closed and they keep these frequency bands in polarization from each other. Now, there have been ways through the astral plane, the D4 astral plane, to distort part of that natural seal apparatus. And that has happened a bit with certain healing modalities. They can pull bits of D4 frequency, but it's what's called phantom D4 frequency. It's Shona frequency on the D4. Now the people that teach Reiki, the people that brought it to the planet in the first place, probably had no idea. They were excited because they just learned a new healing paradigm that was more powerful than the things that were out there. But power can come from both, but the real power comes from the eternal life fields as opposed to the Shona finite life fields. So what we've taught is how to open the seals by running D12 Maharic frequency down as a carrier wave with all of the other frequency bands. And there's a very specific frequency combination, and these are those, and this is all in your Kathara 1 manual. These frequency combinations allow for the Maharic frequency of D12 to be used as a carrier wave to bring down the frequencies that are needed to open the seals below. So each set of currents can come through. So you can anchor the soul currents, the oversoul currents, the avatar currents, and the Rishaic currents. That's a lot easier said than done when you have a DNA mutation as severe as what's existing on this planet. But when you use the Maharic frequency, that is the beginning. In this course, we're going to learn something fascinating about our trusty old Maharic shield down below our feet. We're going to learn we have another one up above our head, too. And we're going to learn that the one down below our feet is called the Ethos Maharic shield that has to do with the etheric blueprints. It's through the etheric blueprints of matter, of the dimensional systems, that we can tap into what's called the base shield imprint. The base shield imprint is the indelible original pattern of any manifest form that came through the Ecka. It left an indelible template of itself in the Ecka. It's because of that that anything, unless the shield gets shattered or completely reversed, it can regenerate the remainder of its template by bringing in that base shield imprint. And that's precisely what we're going to do with base shield bonding. So these are some of the things we learned, and those are some of the places we're going with the simple things we learned. The quantum leap we're going to take from learning about the triadic phase currents, which seemed pretty important at the time. I mean, heck, everybody else is using D3 and a tiny bit of D4 current, and here we are introducing D15 currents on a D12 carrier wave. That was exciting, and it still is. But there's a lot more to it than just that. We're going to get into in this one, where do these currents come from anyway? They must come from somewhere. Well, they come from source. Yes, they come from source, but like is source standing there beaming them out? Or where is source? Are there stages between these and source? So we'll answer some of those questions through this workshop so we can begin to get the clear picture of what our bodies are connected to, what are these currents that we're pulling, what ones we need to activate to accomplish what functions in the body. All right, next one, please. In Kathara 1, we learned about the Kathara grid, which is called the core density template because it is 12-dimensional. And we went beyond that in the dance floor programs and learned about the other 12 sets, let's say number 13 through 24, that correspond to the primal Kathara. We learned a lot more about Kathara that we're going to go through really quickly in this workshop to get to the point where we understand our Eucatharista body. That's a big word. That's a tongue twister, actually. It's called, this is where the word Eucharist originally came out of in some of the Christian teachings, but the meaning that they've assigned to it has been completely distorted. It referred to what's called the eternal flame body, the body of Christ, or the body of Christ. And we will see what that is. We'll see that it was always and will always be a part of you. But it's a part of you you need to put yourself back online with if you want to know it and if you want to be able to express as that part of yourself. So we learned about the Kathara grid in Kathara 1. We learned about the fact that we have an embodied Kathara grid. We learned that, can we push that up a little, honey, please? We learned about the planetary biofeed interface system, where our Kathara grid plugs into the planetary core and the larger planetary Kathara grid. We didn't even get into the fact that there's a galactic or a solar one, a galactic one, a metagalactic one, a universal one, and whole bunches of them up above that. That we kind of covered in the dance floor programs. So in Kathara 1, we left off here. That was simple enough. Two Kathara grids hooked together. Great. You know, planetary biofeed interface. How about a universal biofeed interface? So there's a lot more to this that you need to fill in the blanks to really understand what is your flame body. For that simple question, you need to understand a lot more than just your planetary biofeed interface system. You need to realize that every level of manifestation, from the planet to the sun, to the galaxy, and building up from there, has its own Kathara template. And we're a part of all of them. if you think of shields within shields within shields, all right, if you have the planetary scalar disk shield, inside of that, you have the shields of every life form that's on the planet. Well, the planet exists within a larger shield that would be the solar galactic shield. It's the solar shield first that covers our solar system, which is part of the galactic shield that covers our whole galaxy, which is part of a bigger shield. The shields are huge. Now, when we did the Dance For program, we started at the bottom, worked up to the top, and then dealt with the top. Where is the top of this stairway to heaven? There is a top as far as the first creation point, and we'll see where that is on the personal level, where we first came in to individuated expression from Source, not just from the Ecka. We'll look at what's called the Christ body, the beginning point of the Eucharista body. And it is not something that Source, there's one little trick on some of the teachings that are out there. They said Source knew itself as being and it wanted to create, so it created a replica of itself or another circle outside of itself. Source never ever created anything outside of itself. It creates everything inside of itself and expands it out from the inside. And that's how our Eucharista body works. That is how creation is set in motion perpetually. This is the difference between the inner Christ teachings and the false external Christ teachings, which teach you to project your power and your belief onto objectified sources of supposed power, that you don't have power, you're not a spark of God, but other things are, be they priests or whatever. Now, priests are fine if they're really embodying the inner Christos. The person that was called Jesus taught about the inner Christos. The teachings, these teachings, were those teachings, and they were taken out of the holy books. Why? Because they set people free. Anyway, back to this. Now, we learned about the planetary battlefield interface system, and we learned about the beginnings of the shields, the density shields. We learned that each 3 Kathara centers, which are called signets, was connected to and manifested through what was called a density shield that formed that density level, a scalar template for a specific density level. D1, 2, and 3, density 1 shield. D4, 5, and 6, density 2. D7, 8, and 9, density 3. D10, 11, and 12, density 4 shield. There are bigger shields going up from there. We'll look at some of those when we get into the Lotum and things between tonight and tomorrow. So this is the basic stuff that we've learned through the Kathara 1 program. Next one, please. Thank you. Okay, we also learned that, there's our Kathara grid again. There's the shields. We learned we had shields too. That embodied Kathara grid that we have here that we saw in a diagram before, okay, that's inside of us, and that has these shields. These shields are positioned like this, like on a horizontal plane like this to the vertical of the Kathara grid. So we have these shield discs of standing scalar waves that emanate out in different multidimensional frequencies around us in various parts. They run through the body, and these are the anchoring templates of our consciousness into manifestation. We'll find when we go into the Lotum, oh boy, if you want to see shields, some of the diagrams that went with this, they make beautiful artwork. You kind of look at them and go, what is that? Right? If you can picture things spinning, shields spinning, but not with lots of space between them, at all different angles, creating beautiful arcs of light. This is the beginnings of understanding shields. So we got a very rudimentary understanding of shields in Kathara 1, enough so we could understand we had a Maharic shield down below our feet, that if we began activating it, we could start to bring in D12 frequency, which is the carrier wave needed to bring in any of the other interdimensional frequencies and to clear any distortions in the shield template. It is the minimum required to clear distortions in the scalar shields. You need the D12 frequency because it has all of the subharmonics. If every dimension has 12 subharmonics and you're only using D4 frequency, you're only going to clear 4 subharmonics of that dimension. So to be able to actually create healing in any system, you need D12 frequency because it will hit the 12th subharmonic in each of the dimensional scales. So we learned about the basics of that. We also learned not much about, but the fact that we had what are called Hara centers and a Hara line. Now these get interesting because they are going to be part of the Kathara Level 2 anatomy that we talk about, and in Kathara Level 3 we're going to be activating them but not exactly directly, by activating the Lotum. These will activate. The Hara centers are connected to what are called Hara complexes, which are systems in the body, from brain function to metabolic rate to heart and breathing. These systems are controlled by hara complexes. And the hara are controlled by the deeper portions of the template, including the Kathara grid, but primarily by the lotum crystal and what are called loti lines and loti lines. We have lotis, lotis, and lotas. And yeah, that's just the beginning. So the hara lines, I wanted to show them in this diagram to remind us that yes, they were in there someplace in Kathara, level 1, because we're going to work with them in this, Kathara level 2 and 3. We learned our trusty old Maharic seal, which is what got us this far, actually. It was the fact that people began doing the Maharic seal that enough of it activated not only in your own fields to keep you free from, let's say, some other frequency distortions that have been taking place on the planet through the Shona fields, and it's progressively allowed people to strengthen their own shields and to begin reaching their own Christos self with a clear line of communication and frequency. It's because of the Maharic seal, of using that early on, that we now have the ability to access the Lotum, to access the Ecka and the Ettore chambers and frequencies from that level. If it hadn't been for that, we wouldn't have been able to do any of these things, nor would the planet. So that was a trusty, very trusty tool, and it will always be an important part of Kathara, particularly for people that are just starting out. Even if you just do it for a week, at this point we have such strong technologies to ride on the back of that you don't have to use it for 6 months before it stays up. The planetary grids now help support that, at least part of them do. So we learned about the Maharic seal. We learned about the primary light fields. Can we shift that up a little, please? We learned about the primary light fields and how they come through the Kathara grid. Once you have activation of the Maharic shield and the Maharic frequencies, you get the D13, D14, and D15 primal light fields, the Trinity flames, moving through, and they flash on in the body, right? They don't drip through, they flash on and off. They're pulsing light, standing light waves, right? We learned about that, and then we began to go into very rudimentary things about Merkaba. Now, Merkaba is extremely important. It's not just something fun to play with at somebody's workshop. Merkaba is the living circulatory system of your multidimensional anatomy. And there's a number of people on the planet teaching Merkaba and teaching you utterly nothing about what its real function is. What they're teaching you to do is make a certain kind of Merkaba that we'll show you in a little bit. It's a kind of Merkaba that you might want to think twice about making before you go and blow certain things certain ways and make something spin a certain direction. So we began to just introduce this in part 2 of the Kathara 1 manual, where what we had done is we got new technologies in from like one of the other workshops, and we said, these are so important, we've got to stick them in. So we didn't have time to synthesize them. There's very little writing in the Kathara manual about these. There's just some pictures and some basic explanations and some techniques. Here, do this, right? That's because we didn't have time. It would have taken another like 60 pages of text words to take somebody through, like we have in Kathara 1, where you have all these nice little text blocks that explain things in like written words, which is a really great way to do it. Between the stuff in Kathara 1 Part 2 and all of this stuff, it's going to be 5 years before we get those books written. It's easier to just listen to it on tape, because I can talk about it, we can speak about it. But to put all those spoken words into type takes a lot of manpower hours. And we just don't have the time to do those things because we're on to the next level. It's always the next level. As soon as we give a workshop, the stuff for the next one starts to come in piece by piece. And 3 days before we have to go to the next one, it shows up. And we do another one of these. So anyway, we started with the Merkaba. What we didn't start with at all in Kathara was, you see this little diagram? This one took more than you realized to create. So how does the Kathara grid and the Merkaba go together? This we began introducing, I believe, in the Dance 4 program. I think that's where it first showed up. And it's very important because here's where we began to tap into the secrets of what's called the Christ Code. The Christ Code, and you'll notice this in looking through the Kathara manual and looking through new stuff that has Kathara grids in it. The Kathara manual, Kathara grids, are kind of the right shape, pretty much. But if you measure them, we were never told it had to be this measurement, exactly this big or that, the proportions. They're not bad. They were done by eye, like most of the stuff that I translate. I absolutely hate numbers. I don't know why, but I've always had an aversion to numbers. I prefer to do, pictures, and I'm pretty accurate with picture codes. Like when I do coding, I don't have to use the numbers to measure it, and I get very, very accurate. When Az does them, he brings them down that way, and then he adjusts them all because he used to be a draftsman, so he gets them perfect. And he was surprised that I could just freehand bring them down as close as I could. They were almost perfect drafting, but he does them better because he drafts them. But anyway, when we learned about Merkaba. We began to learn about the natural proportions of a Kathara grid, and there's a very specific proportion of Kathara. It starts with a square in the center, all right? Yeah, there's a square shape, all right? Now, all sides are equal, right? You divide the square in half. Whatever that half point is, you put another that length up to find the tip here and to find the tip down here. All right, now the tip of the Kathara grid is here. This is the tip of the Merkaba. The Merkaba tip actually extends up above the Kathara and below, the one below the feet. So we'll see a little bit about how the Merkaba structure works. But it was fascinating to us when we started to get this through. Oh, that's how they go together. You know, there is the consistency in this work has always been remarkable to me, just looking at how every piece fits with the piece before, and the next piece always fits, no matter how far you go back with the work. There's no inconsistencies, and all the shapes fit together, which is kind of fascinating. So we began to learn about the Chris code before we even knew what it was called. We also began to learn how Merkaba and shields go together, and that was basically where we left off in Kathara 1. Next one, please, love. Oh yeah, wouldn't want to forget these. We learned we had chakras, little spiraling vortices of energy that run through our body and feed energy into and out of our body. We learned in between them there were star crystal seals, and right in their little bow tie knot there were seed crystal seals. These are those dimensional frequency seals and density frequency seals that I mentioned before that keep the frequencies polarized between one density level and one dimensional level and another. It is these that need to open. When we do techniques to activate the shields, those techniques have to be very specific in the frequencies they use, so they trigger the opening of the seals that will allow those frequencies to come in to the body systems. The chakras are one of the hardest levels to reach because they are one of the most distorted levels of the anatomy in terms of the Shona fields. That's why we've had to work from the core density template progressively upward toward the manifestation here. All right. We will get, I think we're going to do, we're going to deal with chakras in Kathara 4, because you're not going to have much success in restructuring your chakras if your lodum crystals are still twisted, because they're just going to put the chakras back to the twisted program. So it's progressively working the mutation out from the core template, and not just working one level at a time. Kathara began with working the density shield template. What we're going to do now is trigger various levels of the anatomy at the same time through the density template, and that we will be clearing mutations from the Merkaba, from the chakra system, from the axiotonal line system, by clearing distortions from the lodum. So it's, let's say, an amplified healing procedure at this point. If it weren't for the environmental factors that we're facing right now, they would not, the beloveds would not have given us this level this fast. We wouldn't have needed it. But right now we do need it, and this planet needs it. The life forms on this planet need it, because these Shona fields are activating very aggressively, and every 6 months they do an up step and they activate more aggressively. This isn't going to change. It's going to keep going until 2012. So right now we're getting a crash course in advanced Kathara healing. Some of this would have been in Kathara level 12, but really it was more so about level 4, 5-ish that this would have been introduced if it was if there was not an environmental issue taking place that they needed to give it to us more quickly for. So we had basically learned we had these parts, chakras, seals, crystal seals grid. We had the auric field levels, 15 auric field levels. I think 12 are shown on here, and there was a primal light fields around that. They each correspond to a chakra. One level of the auric field, the D1 frequency, corresponds to chakra 1, corresponds to auric level 1, corresponds to DNA strand 1. It's a lovely, intricate, but very simple way of creation. It's kind of funny. People say, oh, keep it simple. Well, this is actually very simple. It depends, I guess, on where you're looking at it from. To an ant, it's probably complex. You know, to a human that's suffering from a DNA mutation that they can't remember who they are, it might seem a little challenging. But really, it's a beautifully simple, completely harmonious pattern of creation. And you look at how these pieces fit together, these pieces and what you'll see coming, and how could there be any question as to whether there's an intelligent life force that created creation? Like, this doesn't just happen with a big bang. Somebody set this in motion and designed it. Either that or Big Bangs are very, very intelligent all on their own. So there's our auric field levels and our chakras, our crystal seals. Here we had the, can we shift that up, please? Thank you. We had the axiotonal line grid. Now this is what we're going to be restoring the polarity to in the bodies. The axiotonal lines are actually a part of a series of lines that are enough to make you crazy. A series of lines that start with what are called lodum lines and downstep into loti, loti, and lota lines that downstep into axiotonal lines, the downstep into meridians, the downstep into radius, the downstep into natus, the downstep into your chakras, the downstep into your body. Okay? They're in your body, but these are pulse lines, different levels as the frequency steps down into density 1 manifestation. We're going to be working with the axiom lines and the axiom template. These are called axi-atonals. If you remember from Kathara, axi-B-tonals run horizontally, and they're connected to the parallel self. All right, we'll see why they run horizontally when we see the Akasha, the Eucatharista body templates. Right, and we have axiotonal, axi-C-tonal lines, axiom C lines, that would come down on a diagonal axis. What's very interesting is right now, because of planetary conditions, and not just planetary, it affects the sun and the galactic shield as well, we are in a very special alignment with what is called the Ecka. So what would have been diagonal is now vertical. It won't stay that way for long, but it's enough where we can run directly, vertically now. The frequencies called heliotalic frequencies. Heliotalic frequencies are what you could look at them as frequencies from the central sun, or the seed atom of this 15-dimensional universe. Your seed atom, the part of you that was there, and to get down here you had to leave a part of you behind there, an energy field, a living consciousness field that is you, your Ecka self. And these frequencies that would normally come down diagonal are the lines that would connect you normally to that level of self through that angular axis. But now, because the planetary, well, part of it anyway, the planetary Merkaba field, a third of it, has aligned with the Ecka, we're able to run vertically the heliothalic frequencies through what's called the heliostasis line. Some of these words, it's like, you know, a lot of the words are Iani words. A lot of them are Elohai, Elohim words. So if you hear words, it's not we're not making them up. These are translations from the old text, and if they're into English. And if there's nothing to translate, we just get the word as it is. You should see some of the spellings. So anyway, we're going to be working with getting the axiom lines, and all the lines are connected to, through bonding the lotum to its organic base shield imprint. It will realign these lines, the axiom lines in the body, the natural polarity to them. There are twists right now in the polarity of these lines that actually has mutated the physical form itself. Right now we have organ systems that didn't belong there, and we're missing organ systems that did belong there. Humans were actually breatharian. They could also breathe underwater without gills. They breathed right through the skin. It was no problem. Technically, we only needed lungs for very, very limited purposes because the organ of breathing was the skin. So right now, the bodies we're walking around in are evidence of the mutation we've suffered. But the thing is, they seem perfectly normal because we don't remember what our bodies were like before. One of the neat things is, and it's one of the things that we're going to be partially getting back through the technologies we're going to be learning tomorrow as far as activating the Lotus hands. The Lotus hands have 6 fingers. They have 2 thumbs. If you notice on the axiotonal lines charts, we have 5 axiotonals, but the main axiotonal, the 11 and 12 that carries the 11 and 12 frequency, there's no finger that carries it. Why? Because it's missing, that's why. Because it's been blocked in the DNA template and it doesn't manifest in the human form anymore until it's reawakened. Now, I don't think most of us are going to be growing extra appendages. However, I do know one person who, bless her, was growing an extra toe. So you have all things that come back first, why a toe? You know what I mean? Like, you know, maybe my telekinetic abilities or my ability to levitate, you know? No, the toe. So, you know, some people get tails, I think, when certain other codes start activating. What'll be really funny is to watch people change between now and 2012, not just from here, but go to some of the other people's workshops and see what they start to look like. You know? Basically, we're in a very funny situation on this planet. Everybody that is in Homo sapien form thinks they're human. And most people that are in Homo sapien form aren't and never were. We're wearing a mask, all of us. I don't look like this in my natural form, but at least I'm prepared for what that's going to look like when it comes back. I've met myself in astral projection and stuff. I know what I look like. I'm actually not too far from here. That's why I do the blonde hair. And it's like, well, and what do I look like? Actually, I look like, my face looks like it's about 6 years old. It has very, very large, more cat-like shaped eyes. And it has blonde, kinky hair and kind of palish skin that shows color frequencies of emotion through it. Yeah. So, and that one's on Terra. Some of us actually have bodies waiting in density too, that we put them to sleep. There are chambers that the technology is there is, if you're in a body and you want to keep the manifestation but you don't want to be stuck in it, you want to be able to go roam and put your consciousness elsewhere and bilocate and all sorts of things, there are natural chambers that are created in the Terra's body, or the body of Earth there is called Terra, in density 2, that are climate controlled without all sorts of computers and gadgets, that they're naturally climate controlled where you can leave the body for long periods of time and it does not do anything negative. It doesn't cut the silver cord where you can't get back in, it doesn't die, it doesn't rot, and it slows the growing process, so you don't even have to shave when you come back. I don't know where that came from. Anyway. And yes, I do have the 6 appendage, the 6 fingers and toes on that self. And it feels very natural. You'd be amazed at how useful 2 thumbs on 1 hand are. You should see the musical instruments you can play. What we're going to be doing is getting back our ethos thumb, which is in the etheric imprint, in the ethos-etheric body. There still is the imprint to wake up of that thumb. It would take quite a while and they tell me, certain specific types of accelerations to actually make it grow back, and it would probably not be worth doing that right now because you can transmit the frequencies without the physical appendage being there. Now, you can kind of think of it in terms of, you know how people that have been in an accident and perhaps lost a limb, like a leg or an arm or something, sometimes they still get pain in that limb. That's because the etheric imprint of it is still there. The etheric body is still there and still feeling and viable, even though the physical organ system has gone. Well, even though we don't have the other thumb, the 6th thumb, or 6th finger, 2nd thumb, even though we don't have that on the physical, when we activate it, we'll start to feel it. And what that thumb does, it is the transmitter of the D11 and 12 currents. When this part of the body activates, and it's through a series of things we'll learn about tomorrow that are other parts of anatomy beyond what we're going to cover today, once these activate, they also activate. If you notice the lines, the axiom lines here, the only place the 11 and 12 runs right now is up and down the main vertical current. When the thumbs come back over here and here, it will also bring the 11 and 12 lines into manifestation where they'll run down the legs, they'll run down the arms, they'll run through the brain. And that will activate some things called the Adrana triangulation and several other parts of dormant brain function. So this is the beginning of really reclaiming the biology. And I found that through the last 2 years of accelerated DNA and Kundalini activations, I felt like I aged 900 years for a while there. I mean, the Kundalini activations had my back out of whack all of the time. I'd wake up in the morning and it would wake me up. I couldn't go back to sleep even if I was still tired because I couldn't lay horizontal anymore because the tailbone felt like it was going to explode. It'd take 6 hours before the tailbone worked itself out and about 6 Advil as well, that kind of thing. Well, I was thinking, you know, how far could this go before it just fall apart? It shifted now. The activations that are coming in now with the Radial Flame, these are transmuting. I guess it's because they're transmuting enough of the miasmic contents in the body. If you combine it with working directly with the axiom lines through exercise, oh no, groan, yes, physical exercise, right? It will progressively bring the frequencies in a way that is comfortable, and the body actually feels better. The weirdest thing is, for a person who has actually hated exercise all my life, when I started this, within 2 weeks my body started to shape shift. Within 3 weeks it had really shape shifted, and it started to say, it's time to exercise. What do you mean it's time to exercise? I'm working. So get up and go do something, right? Where the body itself said, yes, I like to feel alive, and it would start to notice when I was sitting for 17 hours with my knees all cramped up underneath me taking down transmission, and it's saying, go stretch those legs, where the body starts to feel it misses that energy coming in. So it actually begins, instead of fighting you, because at first it's like moving through mud. You know, those first 10 minutes are like, you know, shoot me now. But once you get past that, there's actually a euphoria that'll kick in, and I'm sure it has a body will start to help you if you work with the body. I think I probably would have collapsed physically if I tried to run the level of frequencies needed to pull this stuff off the plates and to help hold the shield and a protection shield on the indigo shield, because when we give workshops, part of what our energy goes toward is just a general setting a field underneath the grids so people are protected from any psychotronic nonsense and that kind of stuff. So I think that if I hadn't taken responsibility for my body and said, okay, I will do what you said, not to mention that I wasn't going to have a workshop program if I didn't, because I couldn't pull the transmissions, right? I would have probably felt more of the backache. I probably would have ended up physically ill from the frequencies. So these frequencies are coming into the planet, whether or not we choose to work with them. We're better off working with these than letting the other ones from the Shona fields get a hold of our bodies and progressively do the same thing, but in the negative, where it's ripping our shields apart. So these frequencies, when they begin running through the axiotonal lines, they actually feel good and they'll help. It won't be as hard as the last few years have been as far as some of the things. If you work with exercise, and you don't have to like modify diet heavily or anything like that, but if you work with the exercise, you'll begin to get rid of some of the pain, particularly the back pain, well, that's Kundalini activation. The seals in the tailbone have been releasing as your Kundalini activates, which is bringing your DNA into activation progressively and, you know, slowly. I don't know if they put us under a microscope and did a DNA test right now what they'd see. I don't know if they'd see anything manifest on the physical level yet. Let's hope not, because if they do and they start realizing this stuff works, guaranteed we're not going to be doing workshops publicly anymore. They'll be rounding us up. You know? So anyway, we'll be working with the axiotonals. They were introduced in the Kathara 1 program. These spots here are going to become key spots in the technologies we use tomorrow. They're called Lotus points, and they work with what's called the meiotic dyadic grid, which we'll get into probably tomorrow. We'll hit that level of the anatomy. And unfortunately, there's a lot of technicals to this workshop, so most of the technique will be done tomorrow after you get the technicals, because the technique, it's like, it's hard to go, what was I doing there? Why am I doing that? You need to know what you're doing. Would you want a doctor, a brain surgeon, to operate on your brain if he'd only read a textbook, a medical book a little bit, leaf through the pages, saw a couple of things, oh yeah, I like that procedure, I'll try to learn how to do that, cut here, so there. Would you want somebody like that working on you if you need a brain surgery? If you're going to be a healing facilitator, at least have enough respect for yourself and your patients, or whatever you want to call them, clients, to know what you're doing, to know what frequencies you're running, to know what your anatomy is and what theirs is. So this is why it's important to know technicals, so you know what you're doing, and also, because if somebody's trying to teach you something that's not good for you, you'll be smart enough and have enough information to spot it and say, no thank you. So anyway, we learned about axiotonals. We learned about the DNA template. We learned a little bit about the radial body capsule that surrounds the Huva bodies that are in the auric field. We've learned a little bit again about Merkaba. One of the neat things about the DNA, we've touched on the DNA and the 12-strand DNA pattern, the silicate matrix. We've touched on fire letters and fire codes. Fire codes are the things in the shield template, in the DNA template, that allow for strand braiding, which allows for chemical strand braiding, which allows for biological transmutation when the DNA is working properly. Right? And that, of course, goes into Stargate Passage, which we won't talk about in Kathara. So yeah, that's an ascension program, not a healing program. Not that there's much difference. All right. Now, we also we learned about frequencies. Remember, each dimensional frequency, you have one frequency band equals what's called a ray. We're going to learn a little bit about the rays in a minute. We learn one fire letter sequence. One frequency band equals one sequence of fire letters, which are standing scalar wave points in the DNA template shield. We learned one fire letter sequence equals one DNA strand. and this was a little bit of stuff that was given later in the Dancer program, equals 12 chromosome blueprints. Ooh, starting to get into real DNA, like real that you can ask science if it exists, and they tell you yes. So the experts know it's there. Anyway, one subfrequency band, remember each dimension has 12 subfrequency bands, one subfrequency band equals one fire letter, or kilon. This is where we get chelantic science. That's a name for the standing scalar waves. It equals one chromosome blueprint, which equals 12 gene sequence blueprints. You have one kilana is one vector code, also equals one full incarnate lifespan, but we won't go into that right now. One kilana equals one vector code equals one gene sequence blueprint equals 12 gene blueprints, individual genes. So what we're seeing here is the fact that the DNA template and its fire letters, its standing scalar waveforms, have very specific order, and they very specifically become something when they go through the process of transfiguration into matter manifestation here. Right? So you have 12 DNA strands, and this was the beginning, 12 strands. Most of the people that come to these workshops have much more than that. The indigos go anywhere from 24 to 48 strands. So this, it would be this shape times 4 for a 48-strand DNA template. These are the beings that are here to bring in the frequencies from what are called the higher heavens of the universal structure, which we hadn't learned about yet in Kathara Level 1. So these are some of the things that we're going to learn about quickly, and these are some of the things there's lots more detail on in the Dance 4 programs that if you want to, people that are new that have Kathara 1, if you want to know more about it, there are other programs that have this type of information in it. But for what you need to know to be able to work with the technologies of Kathara 2 and 3, the overview is plenty. So you know where it fits, you know what it's connected to, that's enough. You want the detail, it's in other programs. Next one, please. How am I doing on time? Because I know there's a fixed lunch time here. Oh, good. No more than 40 minutes, okay. I need a sip of something. I'm sticking together. Now, here we go. And toward the end, Kathara Level 1 Part 2 introduced the beginnings of the transduction sequence, which is called the manifestation transduction sequence. It is a process by which things come into manifestation through the multidimensional anatomy and go back out of manifestation through the multidimensional anatomy. This is what makes Kathara, the Kathara Healing Program, unique compared to anything else that's on the planet right now. All the other stuff on the planet right now that deals with chakras and various other parts of the anatomy were all originally drawn from the CDD plates information. So they're very compatible with each other because it's the same anatomy that we're talking about. But most other paradigms don't give you the information pertaining to the whole structure. You work with chakras, but what are they connected to? Energy. What's that connected to? God, right? Well, left a few steps out there, but yeah, basically it's sort of accurate. If you understand the processes, and we'll notice here, we started in, the introduction was, we had our Kathara grid, right? This showed us the planetary connection, that the planetary has all of this anatomy, and then it gets down into our personal anatomy. So we really receive primal life force currents through first the planet receives them from the sun, and also from the solar shield, not just from the sun rays that we see. Right, it comes through the Kathara grid on the planetary level, moves through the shields, then into what was very vaguely drawn as the crystal body. You see, we were never given the shape of this. What does this crystal body look like? We knew it was made of chelons, which are crystalline, codes of part A, part and part M, but we didn't know what shape it was. We're going to learn that this weekend. Right? Then it goes from crystal body into Merkaba. It goes from Merkaba into axiom template, planetary axiom template, and planetary axiom lines, which are the vertical lines that become the electromagnetic lines that are used for navigation and those kind of things, the planetary axiom lines, which are the verticals. That goes into planetary Huva bodies, 3 Huva bodies, dimensional Huva bodies, and what this actually on the outside is called the nadial capsule skin, which is connected to this, but we'll go into that later. And then this is called the radial body. We've learned a little bit about that in Kathara Level 1. But the chakras, the meridian lines, the radius lines, and there's another little set of lines over here called the natus lines that we'll get into a little bit. More of that will be considered in Kathara Level 4. And this thing here was simply called myons and dions. This is your meiotic dyadic grid. And this is what we're going to learn about. And you can't understand what that is unless you go back and learn about something over here, the crystal body. So we're going to focus on the functions of the meiotic dyadic grid, which are directly connected to the axiom lines and all through this anatomy, and they're controlled by the lodum crystal body. All right. So this was the process. We learned frequencies move through the planetary level, and then go into the personal level, where they enter your personal Kathara grid core density template, through your shields, through your crystal body, through your Merkaba, through your axiom lines and template, and the DNA template is the axiom template when it comes to the personal body. Right. Goes into the Huva bodies, and this is only three dimensions of them. They're just showing you one level. Remember, you have 5 Huva bodies, which means you have 5 levels of your radial body around them. That's you could call it the void capsule around the Huva bodies. And through your chakras, through your meridian lines, through your radius lines, through your meiotic dyadic grid. Then there's the natus lines here that we didn't even get into. And then there's this process where, yeah, it comes to manifestation, but the manifestation actually takes place in here. Because the frequencies downstep, they go through this process. There's something called the ethos field in here, and it literally turns the manifestation back around, and all of this is actually taking place in the radial body. So again, it's creating at the center, expanding out from itself, the hologram. So all of this is actually around you, and the chakras are within you. So we began to understand a little bit about the transduction sequence in Kathara Level 1. There's a lot more. You should have seen this chart. I was trying to pull. There are so many pieces of anatomy that go in between the pieces and that show how the pieces all fit together. We've got the basic, most important ones to put in, but there will probably be more expanded on in Kathara 4 and 5, and God knows what's in Kathara 12. So next one, please. Huh? Thank you. Yeah, I'm getting a little walking advertisement. Thank you. No, we're not sponsored by Coke. All right. All right. Now, we also learned a little bit in Kathara 1 about the transduction sequence in the miasmic body. Okay, miasms, those antiparticle buildup in the particle dyadic grid that form what we'll find Shona light crystals. These are things that you can actually begin to feel them under the skin. If you rub somebody's back, let's say, you're giving somebody a massage, you can use your thumbs. Once your fingertips are sensitized, you can actually feel these little things that feel like little tiny pebbles or stones in the tissues. If you're starting to feel these when you rub like your own leg, or if you rub somebody else, you're beginning to feel what are the etheric crystals. They are etheric crystals, but they have substance to them, and they pull together parts of atomic structure and make chemical substances within the skin, that, the skin and organs, not just in the skin, but they have their manifest counterpart as well in chemical function. So we learned that distortions in the planetary grids, in the planetary core density template, will result in those distortions being carried all the way through the planetary anatomy, and they'll turn out in our Kathara core density template, and all the way through our shields, and all the way through our anatomy until it gets through our DNA template right into our manifest form. This is how literally a planet has been hijacked here by frequency distortion in its grids down here on this level, has literally created mutation, not just of the human race. We have what's called the base 4 genetic mutation here. Right now, science will tell you that it's a 4-letter genetic alphabet, that there are 4 nucleotide base pair sets that form all DNA chains, and that every plant, animal, biological form has those. That is unnatural. They will tell you it's natural because it's the only thing they have to look at right now. They haven't seen what natural biology looks like, which is a variable-based DNA. That means that something with 12 strands would have 12 nucleotide bases. Something with 4 strands would have 4. There would be a variable base. So literally, what science right now is identifying as the genetic alphabet is direct evidence of the mutation that we talk about, the mutation that came and still comes from distortions in the planetary electromagnetic fields and the planetary shields. Okay, next one, please. Oh, yeah. Now, those were the things before that we learned about in Kathara 1. what I'm hoping we get to learn about in Kathara 2 and 3 this weekend, in 2 days flat, is the expanded manifestation transduction sequence. All right, we still have the an identifiable line up here, right? We have our Kathara core density template, our shields, our crystal body, our Merkaba, our Axiom template, our Axiom lines, our Huva bodies, our radial bodies, our chakras, our meridian lines, our radius lines, our meiotic dyadic grid, and the stuff you don't see, natus lines and that stuff. We've got those. All this stuff happens in and around, sometimes between these parts. Now, some of you already know some of this. Some of you know about Merkaba, some that have taken the planetary grid classes. Some of you know what that funny looking shape is. Some of you know about flame body and have it activated already. Some of you don't. Most of you have not seen this one yet, because that's a new diagram. This one's new as well. Putting these together in this way is a bit new. This thing isn't new, but it was a little tiny diagram to illustrate something in flame body activation. Now, all these parts go together, and this is just a few of them, by the way. The diagrams that are the real complicated ones, that will probably introduce some of them this evening, and maybe if we don't get to finish them this evening, the rest of them tomorrow morning. They're not even on here yet, because we didn't have the ability to shrink anything down once we left home, like to get small little ones that would fit on here. So what we do is we take the big diagrams and then reduce them down so we can show their show their context in relationship to other things. What we have here is, it's kind of interesting. We have what are called phases of the manifestation transduction sequence. All right, there are phases to this, stages you could call them if you want to, but we call them phases. There's what we started with was called the immediate beginning phase of manifestation transduction sequence. That is where the Kathara level 1 anatomy, the Kathara core template, and the shields were a part of the immediate beginning phase of the manifestation transduction sequence. Now, over here on this side, over here where you have a blank spot in the old diagram, there's a whole bunch of things called the transcendent level of the phase of the manifestation transduction sequence. That is what goes on before a core density template is set within a 15-dimensional time matrix for a form to be created there. What is this connected to? Is God sitting there on a throne? No, not it. Well, kinda, but not like one might think of a person sitting in a chair. There are structures, let's say, of God that exist, living structures of consciousness. But there are also reality fields, just like these, but of a higher caliber of frequency and refinement of energy, that exist. There is it's called stair-step creation. So there's a whole transcendent level of a manifestation transduction sequence from the point where you have source, which you could say is the big circle, and we're this little tiny dot in the center. There's a process by which source moved into its own center and then expanded creation out from inside of itself. So we're always in source. It's like a big flame, a ball of flaming eternal life consciousness, that everything in creation is expanded outward from its center, inside of itself. So you can never ever be separate from source. There isn't anything that is separate from source. Even beings that fall and lose their ability to have a Christic seed atom, they lose their ability to experience one type of path of evolution. But they can't fall outside of source. There is no place outside of source. We won't go into that too much for Kathara. But in the Ascension teachings, we've talked about this. We've tried to explain very large concepts about this in very small 3D terms, which often leaves a lot of blank spots in between that are very experiential, where the words can't touch what direct cognition of the feeling can. So as we work with the frequencies and bring more of the Christic frequencies in, we get each little bit of frequency is one step closer to being able to begin experiencing the truth of what that means. This is what the law of one is about. There is one, and everything in creation is a part of it, whether we like it or not. And that means we're related to all those beings and things, even our neighbors that we might not get along with. We are all children of Source together. That doesn't mean we get along, but it would be nice if we did. Anyway, back to this. Over here, in this section, we will have what's called Flame Body. You're going to get crash course in Flame Body because the people that are coming in from Kathara Level 1 who have not done Flame Body activation techniques, your shields won't activate with the Ecka-Core flame techniques because these are several levels above what the flame body technologies were. The flame body, just like we had to activate the Maharic shield and the Maharic seal frequencies, the D12 frequencies, as a carrier wave before we could bring in anything higher and before we could open the seals in our bodies and our shields. It's kind of the same here. We need to open up what are called the life source currents. All right? In 15-dimensional system, we have life force currents. There are bigger, stronger currents called the Heliotalic currents that are life source currents. So we need to be able to begin opening those into the body, and this is what progressively builds the eternal flame body, which is created by specific activations of your density shields, which creates activations in the DNA, which creates activations in the Merkaba. It's all interconnected. You activate one piece of the anatomy, and that same thing will be reflected in all aspects of the anatomy. So the flame body activation, the reason it's put in Kathara 2 is because it's needed if you're going to go to Kathara 3 technologies, if you're going to use the Lotus technologies, you need to have that. So we'll explain quickly, thoroughly but quickly, what the flame body activation is. So when we do the catch-up course, when those exercises are run, and believe me, they're in consolidated fast form compared to what most of us had to go through to get these things activated in the last year and a half. These will be simple compared to that, but they will do the job because there's enough frequency in the shields now, in the planetary shields, to help you out where we didn't have that kind of help. So we'll learn about the flame body. We'll learn about the structure of the templates that form the flame body, because a flame body is part of something called your Eucharistista, Christ body, or your body of Christ. And this is what the Christos teachings were always, always about. It's what Jesus taught. It's not right now what any church I know of teaches, and that's really sad, because they teach a history book, but they don't teach what was in it, because that's been taken out. That has to do with the Council of Nicaea, but 325 AD, but we won't go into that either. That's just history. Anyway, this is known as the Yanesa, or the, Yanesa. Yanesa, it's the 15-cell seed atom. It's also what's called the base shield. It is this, in its macrocosmic form, within our Eucharistista body, not just our little body here, but the bigger body of light around us, that we need to activate our base shield, because it's this thing that we need to bond our lotum and our axiotonal lines to in order to reset their natural polarity alignment, so they can begin to bring through the full spectrum, not just little bursts of sub-frequency harmonics, currents of the heliotalic frequencies, so we can progressively go into full harmonic flame body activation. Flame body, the flame refers to eternal flame. It's the eternal standing scalar waves of frequency that are the eternal consciousness of Source, holding those forms in order to allow for manifestation to take place within itself. So these are living flames of the light and consciousness of God, if you want to look at it that way, whatever way you're most comfortable. You can look at it through science, or you can look at it through spirituality, because in truth there is no difference between the two things. And what is taught here as science and what is taught here as spirituality on this planet right now is really, really sad, because it makes it look like they are completely in opposition to each other. It just shows that neither understand what's going on fully. Because if they did, they'd realize they're agreeing with each other. Anyway. We were going to understand about the base shield a little bit, which means, of course, we have to talk about things like really quick crash course on monad. What is a monad? Do we really want to know? We'll try to avoid all the spin directions, because for a while there we had to figure out what was spinning what way on what dimension, whether you were male or female, what way it went. And that was enough to make anyone dyslexic. If you didn't start that way, you were definitely going to end up that way. We won't have to do a lot of that, but the information on that is available. The technicals are available. So if there's a lot of holes in our coverage of this information for people who are just coming in, don't worry, it's in there. You ask somebody else that's been around for a while, and ask them what program they remember a certain thing being in, and they might actually have the memory of what program that they learned it in. So there is access to more information than will be covered here. But what's important here is to show you how the parts are connected, and how these parts are connected to what is going to be the control of your biocomputer. And that is this little crystal-shaped form here. This is the outer structure form of the crystal body. It's inside of this that the Merkaba forms. And it's inside of the Merkaba that the Axiom lines form spheres, rotating spheres. The rotation of the Axiom lines running down form spheres of energy. The shields, there's actually, we're going to learn in this class, there's actually 6 shields. We're going to learn about the Ethos shield, which is what we activated down below our feet, the Ethos Maharic shield. We're going to learn what those shields do, how they create this, how this is about vortices and angles of vortices coming in, bringing frequency from the transcendent level of your anatomy down through into density, where those frequencies can reach you through the natural vortice structures, not just of your Merkaba field on the larger Merkaba field, but in little tiny vortices, little tiny Merkabas that actually run through every cell in your body, through every atom in your body, and through your skin, and through every molecule of hair. I mean, there are vortices within vortices within vortices, and it becomes important what vortices are doing when you look at Merkaba mechanics, because Merkaba mechanics are nothing more than vortice mechanics, interdimensional vortice mechanics. Merkaba fields are counter-rotating fields of electromagnetic energy. And we'll look at what a Christic one is, what one is able to hold the living light form, and what types of Merkaba hold dead light or static light, which ones are finite, which ones are eternal. We'll look at that quickly, but enough where you can understand, begin to understand the difference between the word Christic and anti-Christic, where you can get out of the Dark Ages and get your head out of Doomsday Bible stuff, where it's like the Antichrist, big thing rising out of the ocean, going to come get you, you know, if you're not good and go to church every day and that kind of thing. The stories of the Christ and the Antichrist, the Christ and the Antichrist, were all about a knowledge we once had on this planet that was clear, it was technical, it was this knowledge that told you about the physics mechanics of creation and of biology in manifestation. Because at a certain point, everything starts out Christic. There is nothing that was created as anti-Christic. And anti-Christic doesn't mean evil, bad, necessarily. It can act that way sometimes, but what is evil but live or live spelled backwards? All right? Anti-Christic is the reverse of Christic. Christic is a form of light that allows for perpetual motion creation because it can continually re-spark itself. So anything it expends, it can actually replace and replicate. Natural light, Christic light, breathes. It expands and contracts, which means it needs spirals of energy, one going incoming energy toward the center, and the other expanding out toward the outside, not the outside of the sphere of source, let's say, but expanding outward to the inside of the outside parameter, and then back inside to the center. Expanding and contracting, breathing rhythm. All right? Merkaba fields and vortices are about breathing rhythm, the breathing rhythm of frequencies up and down the dimensional structures from here in the 15-dimensional system, but also in the systems of what the 15-dimensional system is connected to. So they're all an intrinsic part. It is the circulatory system, the breathing system, by which God Source perpetually, sorry about that, I haven't slept all night, so my words are a little slower than my brain. Anyway, God Source perpetually cycles consciousness into and out of manifestation through the structures of Merkaba fields. Structures of Merkaba fields are formed and governed by the Lotus crystal body structures. When you see how this stuff is formed, I mean, you can see why. You say, I wonder why I'm not crazy by now, because there was enough technicals in this diagram to absolutely make somebody who doesn't like numbers, you know, want to just like say, I quit, give it to a draftsman, you know. But we've got them down good enough. The diagrams are good enough, the ones I've done. The ones Az does are clearer because he measures. I can measure, but it makes my process miserable. So I don't, unless it's extremely important. All right, but you will see the diagrams that pertain to this, how this is formed, and then how that forms the Merkaba inside of it. You'll begin to see how this structure forms something out here that becomes the meiotic dyadic grid, which is the step right before what we call physical manifestation here. When we look at the phases, again, we had the transcendent phase of the manifestation transduction sequence and the anatomy of the flame body and all sorts of things that you'll learn about that go with that. Then we moved into the Kathara, the immediate beginning phase of manifestation down here in the density system. Kathara 1 covered that. Kathara 2 and 3, now Kathara 2 is going to cover the transcendent level, just because you need to know that that's there to see where the rest comes from. Then, and I'm actually covering it as we go. This is part of the coverage. All right, Kathara 2 and 3, they're going to cover crystal body, Merkaba, Axiom lines, Huva bodies, radial bodies, all the way up to right about here, where Kathara level 3 starts here. Now this phase is called, that goes to Kathara 2 and a little bit of 3, is called the intermediate phase of the manifestation transduction sequence. And that has these parts of the multidimensional anatomy that go along with that. When we get over here, they kind of overlap a little bit, where you go axiom. This ends at radial body, level 2, but level 3 kind of begins back here at axiom lines. This goes all the way over to meiotic dyadic grids, which gets into chakras, meridians, and that kind of stuff. Part of this is going to be in Kathara 4, because we need a week to do it, and I need a month to do these diagrams. So I don't have the transmission on Kathara 4 done yet. But we're going to cover the Kathara level 3 part of the anatomy that pertains to this level. This is called the pre-externalization level of the manifestation transduction sequence. And Kathara 4 and 5 are going to begin to cover directly the manifestation level, which means that the missing link between what are things we don't see in our anatomy, the frequencies we don't see yet, and what science has told us is there, what they do see, what is under microscopes and in DNA tests and those kind of things. So there's going to be the link directly into the physical with Kathara 4 and 5. What we're doing right now is, as we're becoming aware of these levels of anatomy and the structures that go with them, we are progressively clearing, using technologies, techniques, to clear and restore the natural organic imprint for health within each level of the anatomy. If you're working out here with chakras alone, and you fix something here, and you've got distortions and all this behind it, how long do you think it's going to last? Not very long. It's not going to do much of anything. You're just going to really waste your energy. Sometimes what happens is you restructure the mutation. If there's a distortion up here that's coming out of something back here, you can see there's a rip in it. That rip might be caused because the organic imprint for health is sending natural frequencies up to try to dismantle the unnatural form so it can put back the natural one. You restructure a chakra using energy healing technologies, and you just put the mutation back. You know what I mean? So there are times when it's all right to do that. If the body is in distress, if the person is in serious distress where the body systems are going to crash if intervention isn't given, you're better off using medicine, using allopathic treatments, using topical energy treatments to restore the immediate balance within the body, to restore the harmony in the body within the framework of the mutation, until the body can balance and get de-stressed enough where it can start taking on the healing process again. There would be no way, without using these technologies, that the races of this planet would have been able to reverse mutate what is taking place in the DNA. This would have been permanent for everyone on the planet if it hadn't been for the guardian race's intervention here. And a lot of people don't quite realize the level of the gift, because they don't realize the level of the problem that's here. Most doctors are lovely people who want to really help people with medicine, and they do. They can serve some of the immediate things, and they can make you better. They can take things that are cancerous out of your body so you get more longevity out of it. But I haven't met one yet that can make you immortal. But the thing was, you used to be. And most doctors would love to know how to do that too. And it comes from spiritual healing, it does. But spiritual healing is not just la-la land out there where you go, oh yeah, I'm going to pray to the angels and they'll fix it for me, and I'll just let the angels run their frequency through me. You better hope you get angels, because you might not. There's a big universe out there. All right, angels can be nice if they're truly angels, all right, but some aren't. Anyway, when we work with the biology, when we know what these pieces of our biology are, we know how they're supposed to work together. We don't have to go to external sources to be fixed. That doesn't mean you don't go to a doctor if you're sick. You do go to a doctor if you're sick. Use whatever treatments on the outside you need to get your body into a harmonious state within the mutation while working to heal the mutation using viable technologies that understand the mutation and are built on natural order. So it's using the two. That's why this is a very compatible system with anything you put it with. It doesn't matter what technologies, be it allopathic medicine, be it Reiki, any of those things. It can be used, these frequencies, these technologies can be added to any of those technologies, and it will bring out the best in all of them. It will bring the frequencies of the Heliotalics, which are the Ecka-Core frequencies, in, and they're the most powerful healing frequencies that can be brought into a density system. So they will increase the effectiveness of whatever modality you apply them to. They will also help to clear any distortions that might be in that modality. It will help to use these frequencies to run through medications that you hold in your hands. just in case there's anything in there that's not harmonious with your system. It will help to purge some of the miasmic content out. So this is a very compatible system. It's not use this instead of. It's use this with whatever you feel like doing. But when you think about chakras and things, if you're doing chakra work, think about waiting a little bit maybe and learning a little bit more about chakras, because there is a program of chakra restructuring and auric field restructuring and etheric surgery and all that good stuff that goes with this. But think about the fact that we're being taught these things because we need to build the support underneath before those levels of the system are going to hold anyway. So you can fix chakras until you turn purple, but it's not going to hold until you fix what's underneath it to a certain level. That's what the technologies are about that we're learning. We're going to learn about Merkaba. We're going to really quickly cover the various stages of Merkaba, or phases. There's about 8 different types of Merkaba, and that includes the 2 antichristic type, which means finite life, Shona field type. All right? So these are the parts that we're going to try to cover today. We're going to today and tomorrow. We're also going to cover what's called the Christ code. The Christ code is a very specific relationship of numbers, of thrust and frequency and angular relationships between electrical and magnetic units that creates perpetual motion. It creates perpetual regeneration of something called the Christ spark, which is the living light spark that eternal life fields are created upon. There is something else that creates the Shona fields. It is called the Vesica Pisces mutation, which is a static, frozen light field. We're going to learn the difference between them and basically what these structures, the Shona light static fields, create. Because just like natural light units will collect and form atoms of light that build up to become the scalar standing wave grids, that build up to become the matter we're made out of, that holds our consciousness into manifestation, these things, the Shona fields, do the same. They form structures, and they, just like our natural bodies are structured out of the Chalet light, which is one level of the density light that's in a 15-dimensional system, natural Christic light. There are other fields, Shona transposition fields, that are geometrical forms. You transpose that. Inside that, it completely changes the angles of vortices, the angles of energy flow lines, and how they come in to the body systems. And it is because of these, and I use the dodecahedron on purpose, because it is specifically the largest one that right now is being built around the planetary grids. It is the big one that certain, let's say, groups have wanted to activate on this planet for a very long time, because it will allow for a complete hijack of everything contained within it. It distorts the angles of the lotum. And actually, when these are strong enough and there's enough of this frozen light, static light frequency built up within them, they'll tilt the axis of the natural lotum, and they'll break its connection to the rest of the anatomy that you'll see tonight and tomorrow that the lotum is connected to. It'll break the connection of the lotum to the Ecka, and it will form a different type of frequency. What do we call it? The word I'm getting to is arc, but frequency conduit, because we're going to learn about how there's natural arcs that form in here. See this thing? This is the lotus, that flower thing that we keep playing with, the lotus, that is part of the Kathara grid, also part of the lotum, are the original energy arc lines. They're arcs of energy that occur through a specific process that are standing arcs of energy. It is from these standing arcs of energy that Merkaba fields bring energy in. These are the standing arc-shaped scalar grids that spin on their axes and continually allow energy to come in from above, from the more expanded levels of creation, down into manifestation, and to have the other parts spiral back up again. So you have descension coming down into manifestation and ascension going back out of manifestation through the natural, what's called the lotus flow. There's a lot of lotuses, by the way, arcs. All right, if you see those petals and realize those petals are arcs, and this is what sacred geometry is supposed to be about. Now, when you take those arcs, you look at these, they're at 45-degree angles, right? Usually, you see pictures around of the arcs being down here. They come in about 60 degrees. They look nice and pretty and neat that way, but you know what? They can't breathe that way. These spaces here are because there's a direct interface. This would be for one. It would be for one part of the lotum that goes with the particum universe. There's another part that would be on a horizontal axis instead of vertical that would run through from the antiparticle universe that allows particle and antiparticle to come together, that allows particum and particle to come together to reform the particle. This is the natural breathing cycle. It's made by this lotus shape and another one running this way put together. And when they open their arcs to each other, they form a 12-petal lotus with the petals at the degrees that the other 6-petal ones that you see out there in other paradigms are being taught. This program should show you how even we've showed how Merkaba Fields spin rates and other things, which ones are Christic and which ones are anti-Christic and why. We will show here the shapes of the crystals, and we'll also show the shapes of the flowers. And what you really end up with is the living lotus, and this is what we're going to reactivate in our systems. Because what we've had, because we have this shape, structure, in various parts of our anatomy that doesn't belong there, the Ashayana fields, we have dead arcs. We have arcs of energy that are coming in at the wrong axis that cannot connect with their antiparticle double, which means the DNA cannot braid. It means we cannot bring in the frequencies of the Ecka, which are particle frequencies. It means we have been stuck and phase-locked in time and living in Shona light fields. And our bodies have been progressively been composed of them. We collect them. They accrete in our bodies. We can also accrete living light that way. And it comes into, the reason why these arcs got bent was because the lodum crystal axis has been shifted. It's actually been split. 23.5 degrees plus 11. Okay, has to do with the planet. Now, it's been split because of the creation of artificially generated these things, Shona field, Shona transposition fields, or filters, actually. They're very specifically created. These don't happen by accident. Bits of Shona fields happen by accident in the form of miasms. But these are created. They're created through something called tandem Merkaba. Tandem Merkaba is a form of anti-Christic Merkaba that's built on reversed light currents, finite light Shona currents, that literally forms outside of one of these geometrical Shona light fields. It's an external Merkaba. These technologies were brought here big time in Atlantis, and we've been living the nightmare ever since. They haven't gone away. They're still here, and they're beginning to activate in the shields. HARP is connected to this, by the way, but that's the least of it. So we're going to learn about these things. We just learned a little bit about them. We're going to see more pictures, more diagrams. Pictures tell many stories. It's lunchtime? Okay. All righty. Let me see. What number am I on? I hate to look. You're kidding me. Oh, my God. There's 62. Oh, wow. We're on diagram number 9, and there's 62. Before we get to the lodum, and it's lunchtime. It'll just mean I have to pick up my speed. Now, some of this stuff, the introduction stuff, this was the introduction. The other things aren't that hard. A lot of you have seen them before. No, they're not. Embedded Merkaba Fields, formation of Merkaba Fields, all that stuff. It's really actually pretty easy when you see the pictures. And you will have a chart pack to go with this, so the people that are coming in Kathara 1, you will have these pictures to look at. And the pictures are the only way I can give these presentations, because I look at them and I can remember. If I don't see the pictures, don't even ask me to explain. The pictures hold the information for you. That's why we keep giving them to you over and over again, where you get the same diagrams put in a different way, but it's still holding the same information bite. So you'll get these. They're saying that it's lunchtime now, and it is a fixed lunch, so I have no flexibility on that. The way we're going to run this, because I have a bunch of, there's still a bunch of the graphs I want to finish on the lodum, because I'd like to get as much of that done as we can tonight, including the 62 minus 9 diagrams we have to go through to get there. I'd like to get that done so it can be given tonight, at least most of it, hopefully, or at least where you get to see what the darn thing looks like, because it's exciting what it looks like. Right. Then tomorrow we can focus on the technologies, of using the technologies. So I think what we're going to do is the class that was going to be given this evening for the catch-up class for the people who want to do the activations, get the flame body activations done. All right. You'll learn more about what flame body is. You'll learn a little bit about it. All right. You'll learn exactly what it is the rest of the evening, but we're going to switch when I would have done the workshop with when we would have done that class. So between about 6:30 and 10:30-ish, 11 o'clock tonight, we're going to do the second half of the workshop, and during, after lunch, for the people who want to do the catch-up activations class, Marianne will be running that right after lunch. All right, so we'll do it that way. It's the best use of time because then I can go and finish the graphs. So you'll have, hopefully, be able to see what this lodum thing is that I'm talking about, because it's much more impressive than this little crystal shape on a page. It's absolutely gorgeous. It looks like a flying machine, and I can't wait till you see it. So I hope you enjoy your lunch. This is the beginning. Thank you.
About the program. About, I would say, around 6:30. My guess is if you got out at 7, you wouldn't miss a lot. Just a guess. Any other questions about any logistics that's going on? Is Mary Lou, you here? Okay, I'm going to have to check with Mary Lou what time she scheduled them, but yes, they are going to be held. I don't know what time, though. Yeah, again, I'll get Mary Lou in here before we leave, and she'll be able to fill you in on the ordination. How many people have never seen this code before? Okay. Never seen it? Oh, you have to. There's always one in a crowd. Okay. This is called the Akasha Code, and I left it up there because this is one of in the first technique, this is the code we're going to be visualizing. And I'm sure many of you have this ingrained in your brain. Okay, Dawn, lights, please. A few months ago, my friend Jay, you here? Called me and said, he says, Mac, I love you, but whatever you do, never sing into a microphone. My voice could scare small children. So there's going to be some of the toning here, and I'm going to hand it to this lady who has the most angelic voice I've ever heard. So she's going to help me out here. And actually, at this point, I would really want to acknowledge Rosaline and the choir from this morning who did such a beautiful job, and Melissa. Let's have a round of applause for these ladies who did a great job. Okay, we're going to run through these probably simultaneously, but I'll leave a couple of minutes in between just so we can kind of settle, and if I can read the group maybe even about 5 minutes before each technique, but we're going to pretty much flow through it. So you're going to be sitting for maybe about an hour and a half. Maybe we'll have a little stretch break in between too, but so I'd get as comfortable as you can. And the very first technique we're going to do is called the Akasha Quick Seal Activation. So I invite you now to close your eyes. And just begin by slowing your breathing rhythm as you imagine or visualize the Akasha Hierophant at the pineal gland in the center of your brain. Visualize the Akasha Hierophant surrounded by a pale blue sphere of light. The pale blue sphere containing the Akasha Hierophant is called the Akasha Sphere. Tone the Akasha Psalm slowly before you inhale. Umhae Treinae Akasha. Umhae Treinae Akasha. Umhae Treinae Akasha. Inhale, using the inhale breath to energetically grab the pale blue Akasha sphere located at the pineal, and on the exhale, use the exhale breath to push the Akasha sphere all the way down to chakra 13 at Earth's core, as you again tone the Akasha Psalm. Umhae Treinae Akasha. Umhae Treinae Akasha.
Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha.
And if you listen quietly, you just may hear another sound tone as the Akasha sphere hits the planetary shield at Earth's core. Repeat the Akasha Psalm 3 more times.
Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha.
Now, using the inhale breath to draw the Akasha sphere up to your personal Maharic shield, 12 inches below your feet. And then exhale while watching the Akasha sphere become a pale silver blue sphere that expands outward to form a larger sphere. Toning the psalm 3 times, and imagine that your Maharic shield pops out as a pale silver disc, about 4 feet in diameter, surrounded by a coating of an aura of pale blue light, with the Akasha Hierophant symbol at its center. Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha. Bringing your attention to the center of your Maharic shield, 12 inches below your feet. Tone the Akasha Psalm 3 times and inhale using the inhale breath to draw the Akasha Hierophant symbol without the pale blue sphere from the Maharic shield center up into the 4th heart chakra. Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha. And with an exhale, using the exhale breath to expand the frequencies of the Akasha code from the Akasha Hierophant into the heart chakra as you softly tone the psalm 3 times. Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha. And in just a moment, we'll be toning again. And as we tone, using the inhale breath to energetically grab the Akasha Hierophant symbol at the 4th heart chakra, and then exhale. Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha Umaitreinae Ekasha. Now you can imagine the Akasha Hierophant spinning in a clockwise direction in the 14th chakra. As you do this, feel and sense the energy around you, just a few inches out from your body. Moving your attention to your Maharic shield, 12 inches below your feet, take a couple of relaxing breaths and inhale deeply, using the inhale breath to pull the pale silver and blue energy upward from your Maharic shield to chakra 14, 36 inches above your head, pulling your Maharic seal pillar upward and launching it into your 14th chakra. This procedure activates your temporary Maharic seal pillar, amplifying its intensity and strength on the Ki-Rash frequencies of the Akasha Code. Feel the difference between the amplified Akasha Code frequencies and those usually generated by the Maharic seal alone. Envision the 4-inch diameter pale silver cord of Maharic light that would normally come up with your activation of your Maharic seal pillar, and focus on chakra 13 at Earth's core. Inhale using the inhale breath to draw the Maharic cord of pale silver energy up into the body to the 4th heart chakra center. And then expanding the pale silver energy to form a pale silver Maharic sphere of D12 frequency within the 4th chakra. And exhale, using the exhale breath to send your attention downward to chakra 13. And inhale again, bringing another load of Maharic frequency up from the planetary shields again to the 4th chakra, expanding the pale Maharic sphere. And you can repeat this inhale and charging several times. And as you notice this, as you do this, you'll notice that the Maharic cord grows larger with each breath, expanding from approximately 4 inches to 6 inches, then to 8 inches. And finally, the Maharic code expands outward to form a skin around and within every cell of your body. The Maharic energizing breath loads your D4 astral field with Maharic frequency. Moving your attention now to the pale silver Maharic sphere you have created in your 4th heart chakra. And inhale, using the inhale breath to move the Maharic sphere up to meet the Akasha Hierophant at the 14th chakra, 36 inches above your head. You may sense a sheath of Akasha code charged pale silver Maharic frequency encasing your D1 etheric body, radiating from within the body to about 1 inch above the skin. This pale silver Maharic Christos skin charges and saturates your etheric body with Akasha code amplified D12 Maharic frequency subharmonics. Just take a moment to sense and experience directly the peacefulness and the all-knowing nature of this frequency. Now for the final 3 breaths. In just a moment we're going to tone the Akasha Psalm one more time. As we do, inhale and exhaling, using the exhale breath to expand the Maharic sheath Christos skin further outward around your body and into your auric field. Umae treinae Akasha, Umae treinae Akasha, Umae treinae Akasha. You may see or feel the pale silver Akasha teardrop expand fully outward into your auric field, its top pointed, anchored in the 14th chakra, 36 inches above your head, its bottom embracing chakra 13 at Earth's core below your feet. We're going to end with singing the psalm 3 more times, and inhaling, and on the final exhale, Expand the pale silver Akasha Christos skin Maharic sheath out into the universe as far as you can, toning the psalm for the final time. Umae treinae ekasha. Umae treinae ekasha. Umae treinae ekasha. And before we begin the next technique, we're going to do a series of the magic words of creation. And anybody would like to sing along, if you want to open your eyes, we have them up there.
So we're going to sing it 12 times. So we'll start fairly slowly and then we'll build up speed. Okay? Umae treinae ekasha. Umae treinae ekasha. Umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dahyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Irashara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahyura haramaya manaki umae treinae ekasha. Ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi Manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahura haramaya manaki umae treinae akasha ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahura haramaya manaki umae treinae akasha ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahura haramaya manaki umae treina akasha ire shara dikeshe ta'amira pranachi manu ekre dakyuki ma'ayana treari mane kai hahura haramaya manaki Ashlam ta ekashad. Ashlam ta ekashad. Ashlam ta ekashad.
The next technique we'll be doing is called Astral Awake, Aware, and Able. And the purpose of this technique is designed to release the dimensional lock 3 seal between D3 mental body and the density 1 radial body Eros field, bringing the D1 atomic etheric body out of density 1 biological phase lock. So again, I invite you to close your eyes. And imagine that within the center of your brain there is a small, dimly lit, circular room with a gently spiraling staircase descending downward into a calm, pale, blue-gray space of energy within you. This is called the sleeping room. Placing the focus of your mental attention in the small circular room at the top of the staircase. It's dimly lit, and in this space at the present time, so you will need to feel the sensation of being within the circular room until your inner eyes adjust to the dim light. Feel the sensations around your physical body as if you were in a small circular room. Observe. What temperature is in the air as it touches your skin? Do you feel cool? Warm? Is it comfortable? And listen, is there any sound in this space? And if so, what kind of sound? Is there anything that you can see in this dimly lit space? Objects or colors or light? Just explore for a moment. And imagine that the circular room is physically real and that your physical body is standing within it. With eyes closed, sense with your physical and mental bodies where the entrance to the spiral staircase is positioned. If the spiral staircase were to magically open up now, emerging from your physical body and into the room, you are now physically sitting in. Sense the area of your physical body from within. Notice where the staircase would emerge. This area represents your natural departure point. Is it to your left or to your right? Is it directly in front or back of you? It might not be the same for everyone. Is it above or below the navel? Is it above or below your head or feet? Everyone has one of these departure points. It is the area in the body template from which the mental body consciousness naturally expands to enter states of projection. And if you can't right now sense the departure point, simply imagine where you would like it to be and put the departure point there. Once you have located or created your departure point, move the focus of your mental attention to this area and imagine that your awareness is now poised at the top of the spiral staircase. The staircase extends downward from your departure point into an area that resembles a pale blue-gray tunnel. Sense the location of the staircase handrail, expanding and using all of your senses. And imagine yourself reaching out to grasp it with the appropriate hand. With your physical palms resting in your lap, sense the feeling of the handrail with the palm of your physical hand, and physically grasp the invisible handrail with your chosen hand while it rests loosely on your lap now, modeling the grasping gesture. This handrail is your guide as you prepare to descend the spiral staircase to the sleeping room below. Using the imagined sensation of the handrail in your palms as you guide, imagine now that your mental awareness begins to slowly walk down the dimly lit stairway. Count each of the steps you take as you slowly descend. Everyone will have at least 22 steps. Some people may have more. If you sense that more steps are there after the 22nd step, count the remaining steps while imagining you are rapidly walking down them to the bottom. Remember how many additional steps there are. With repeated practice of this technique, the steps below step 22 will disappear, and you'll eventually find the 22nd step is the bottom step that will lead you directly into the pale gray sleeping room. Now just imagine you're standing at or on the 22nd bottom step and realize the handrail while allowing your hand to relax in your lap. You still may experience very little visual sensory data as you enter the pale blue-gray sleeping room. Imagine that you're stepping from the 22nd step to the granite floor of the sleeping room, while imagining the sleeping room as a circular granite cave that is dimly lit with a very pale, diffused blue light. In the center of the sleeping room, there is an ancient granite slab that rises up from the floor to the height of the dining table. Imagine that you're slowly walking forward, one step at a time, as you feel your way along, as if moving through your physical home in the dark. Continue to sense that you are walking forward in the sleeping room until your extended hand touches the raised granite slab in front of you. When you reach the granite slab, imagine that you are reaching forward to retrieve something that sits upon the slab. Imagine that you're feeling the top surface of the slab, searching with your fingers to locate the small object awaiting your retrieval. The object is a very pale silver-blue celestite crystal, spherical in form, about the size of an orange, with an unpolished, rough-hewn texture. The celestite crystal is the door key to your density 1 etheric body. Imagine picking up the celestite crystal in your right hand, while modeling this hand gesture with your physical right hand as it rests in your lap. Sense the size, the weight, the texture, and the temperature of the celestite crystal with your physical hand, as if the invisible object were there. Inhale pale silver Mahara current from the earth's core up into your body through the central vertical current to the 4th chakra. And as you exhale the Mahara current from the heart chakra down into your right arm, into your palm, and into the celestite crystal. You can do this in a series of 3 breaths. Each breath energizing and activating the celestite crystal in your palm. At the end of the last exhale, imagine that the celestite crystal is now glowing and pulsating with an aura of pale silver light. You may see this pale silver blue aura around the celestite crystal in your inner vision, and may sense the weight of the crystal in your palm growing slightly less heavy. You may also sense nothing, but even so, the celestite crystal is activated. With eyes closed, move your physical right hand, imagining the activated celestite crystal within, to a point on your physical body just below the navel. Cup your hand over this body area, as if the invisible crystal was positioned between your palm and your body. Inhale a Maharic breath up to the heart chakra, and exhale the breath down your right arm and through the celestite crystal. As the breath carries the Maharic frequency into your body, there's a sensation of mild buzzing in the area just below the navel as the data key stored in the celestite crystal moves into the corresponding lock on the etheric body. If you do not feel the buzzing sensation, send a few more breaths through the celestite crystal to amplify the Maharic charge that will release the data key. Enough frequency now has been generated, so even if you do not feel the buzzing sensation, know that it's been generated and it's activated. As the data key releases, imagine that your body absorbs the entire celestite crystal, removing it from your palm and transferring the crystal into the etheric lock below the navel. Let your right hand rest gently in your lap, while shifting your mental focus to the area of the body where the crystal has entered. Imagine now that you can sense the weight and gentle buzzing of the celestite crystal within your physical body below the navel. The crystal now rotates slowly and pushes in a gentle rhythm on every pulsation, releasing a pale silver blue celestite wave field of frequency rays that contain the natural activation code mathematical program for your personal etheric body. Try to become aware of each gentle pulse of the subtle celestite wave as it emanates from just below the navel and spreads outward in all directions through every atom of your body, giving your D1 etheric field its ancient wake-up call. Relax and breathe slowly for a few moments to get in touch with the presence of the pulsing celestite waves. The celestite waves are there, even if you cannot sense their presence. Your density 1 atomic etheric body does indeed sense them, and is indeed responding accordingly. After a few moments of sensing the celestite wave or sea wave as it pulses and moving throughout your body, inhale Maharic current up to the 4th chakra. Then exhale the current within the 4th chakra to form a small, pale, silver Maharic ball, about the size of a golf ball within the 4th chakra. Taking 2 more inhale, exhale Maharic breaths, using each subsequent exhale to expand the Maharic ball from golf size to orange size. Continue expanding to the size of a grapefruit, while observing the sensation of the Maharic ball expanding in your heart chakra. Taking a final Maharic breath, this time inhaling Maharic current directly into the Maharic ball, and using a forceful exhale to burst the Maharic ball while pushing the released rays of Maharic current throughout your entire body. Now turn your attention to the point below the navel where the celestite crystal entered the body. This point is called the Iumbi. Slowly inhale Mahara current upward from Earth's core to the Iumbi only by keeping the chest, diaphragm, and lungs as stationary as possible and allowing the slow inhale breath to expand your abdomen instead of expanding the lungs and upper portion of the body. This is called abdominal breathing, a specialized breathing technique for running Kundalini and higher life force currents into various hard-to-access means of the personal biofields. Take a few Maharic breaths in the abdominal breathing posture to become more familiar with this technique. And after a few practice breaths, initiate the activation breath, inhaling Mahara current into the Iumbi while expanding the abdomen. Then hold this breath for a moment while focusing mental attention on the celestite crystal. And exhale slowly, using the exhale breath to push more Mahara current downward from the heart chakra to the Iumbi. Just breathing normally now. Just relax, and just for a few moments, you might hear a very subtle pop sensation or a sense of expansion or warmth to occur within the Iumbi as the lock seal releases, freeing the D1 atomic etheric body for merger with the D3 mental body to initiate D3 mental plane projection travel. As the Iumbi lock seal releases, you may or may not experience a momentary sense of lightheadedness or mental spaciness as the D3 mental body capsule opens and expands into the etheric body blueprint. The etheric body exists as a D1 Ire primal current energy field within and surrounding every atom, which extends like a form-fitting pale gray energy spacesuit around the entire physical body. The etheric body is now ready for independent travel under the direction of the D3 conscious mind ego. How quickly one will be able to hold clear mental focus within the etheric body vehicle depends upon the personal level of DNA template activation. When DNA strand template 4 fully activates, the D3 mind can simply shift its attention into the etheric body and step outside of the physical body for travels in the 3D mental plane. Before full 4-strand activation, there will be very essential and experiential phenomena associated with the accelerated strand 4 activation initiated through this exercise. Continuing to breathe gently with eyes closed, imagine the etheric body spacesuit or body replica. Imagine that you can see its pale blue-gray form sitting within your physical body in exactly the same position as your physical body. Imagine now that you can fully direct the etheric body and move the left etheric arm upward from your lap to a position over your head, as if you were raising your etheric hand. Using the mental command, the arm is up now, as you play with the etheric arm, getting it to respond. You will know that you would have made the connection when you begin to have a subtle, but progressively more distinct sense that a lighter weight arm has moved to a different position than the physical arm. Regardless of whether or not you can feel the etheric arm, give the mental command, body release now right, while imagining that you and your etheric body are slowly standing up and moving out to the right side of the physical body. Imagine that you and your pale blue-gray spacesuit are now moving to a different position in the room, then out the door. See how far your attention can follow the etheric body before you lose track of its imagined projection. Let's take a moment now to and play with this. You might even want to try to shape-shift. In your pale blue-gray spacesuit, imagine that you are walking back to stand beside the right side of your physical body. Unlike the physical body in its present condition, the etheric body has more flexibility of form than that currently available to you on a physical level. Realize that you are the spacesuit. It is the form that your consciousness carries in communion with the etheric body, just as your physical body is the form your consciousness carries when you are in biological D3 focus. Choose a form, an object, a plant, an animal, and imagine that your etheric body is now a pale blue-gray cloud of energy hanging in the air to the right of your physical body, awaiting your command as to what it will form. Hold in the mind the intention of the true form you wish to create. Then visualize or imagine that your etheric body has compiled and turned itself into the form, as the pale blue-gray form now hangs on the right of your physical body. With practice, etheric body perception will progressively turn on, and this exercise will take on the very real, experiential quality of etheric body D3 plane projection. Focus again on your physical body, back in the physical body. Going to begin technique, the Eros flame in the silver sanctum. Focusing the mental body attention on the Iumbi point just below the navel. Imagine your consciousness as a spark of pale silver Maharic light placed within the celestite crystal sphere within the Iumbi point. With your attention focused in the celestite crystal at the Iumbi, give the mental command, shift now to the etheric body vehicle, while imagining your etheric body moving out to the right of your physical body with the silver spark of your consciousness placed within the brain center pineal gland of the etheric body. From the etheric body, the Eros flame within and surrounding the body can be activated. Using the vertical breathing rhythm of running the Mahara current within your physical body, you will move the silver spark within the etheric body. Inhale Maharic current up from earth core and into the fourth heart chakra. In one breathing motion, exhale the Maharic current into the heart chakra. Then direct its flow downward to the celestite crystal of the Iumbi. Taking a few more Maharic breaths, using each exhale to expand Maharic current into the heart chakra, then down into the celestite crystal. And on this last breath, inhale Maharic current up from the earth core directly into the celestite crystal at the Iumbi. Inhale again with your attention focused on the celestite crystal, then exhale forcefully into the crystal, while imagining that the celestite crystal moves with the breath into the Iumbi cord and to the right. Passing from your physical body into the Iumbi of the etheric body, imagining that the pale silver-blue celestite crystal is now resting comfortably within the Iumbi point of the etheric body. Bring your attention to the pale silver spark of the pineal gland of the etheric body. Inhale in the physical body, then exhale forcefully while imagining that the silver spark rides the breath current, moving rapidly down from the etheric pineal into the celestite crystal at the Umbi point. You may notice that when the silver spark intersects with the celestite crystal, a momentary etheric flaring occurs as the celestite crystal bursts into a pale silver blue Eros flame about 1.5 inches high with the etheric body Umbi. Inhale and exhaling, and imagining that the pale silver blue Eros flame spreads throughout every atom of the etheric body, turning the pale blue-gray etheric body into a brilliant, glowing, shimmering, pale blue-silver etheric body that glows and gently pulses, sending rays of pale silver-blue energy outward through and beyond the etheric body into the biofield with every pulse. Focusing your attention on the small Eros flame at the etheric body Umbi, and inhale, and using the inhale breath to draw the Eros flame through the Umbi cord and into the physical body Umbi point. Exhaling, using the exhale breath to push the Eros flame down to the 13th chakra at Earth's core. When the Eros flame enters the chakra 13, again the Eros flame momentarily flares, filling every atom in the physical body with pale silver blue Eros Maharata divine blueprint. Sense the release of the Eros wave or the E wave within the physical body as a gentle ripple of energy that moves simultaneously in all directions through the physical body. With attention focused on the Eros flame at chakra 13, inhale deeply and draw the Eros flame upward to the 4th chakra. Focusing your attention on the inside of the Eros flame, then exhale forcefully, using the exhale breath to rapidly expand the Eros flame within the heart chakra and outward through the body until the Eros flame is fully expanded around the entire body and outward several feet into your auric field, forming the pale blue silver akasha inner sanctum body capsule. Directing your attention back to the etheric body positioned to the right of your physical body. Inhale, drawing the etheric body horizontally back into the physical body. When the two bodies rapidly and fully aligned, the activated Eros flame akasha capsule will momentarily flare again as the Eros flame phase locks within both the etheric and the physical body. The akasha seal, Eros flame, and the celestite crystal are now fully activated. The next technique is called commanding silence from the inner throne of power. Moving your mental attention to a point of focus at the top of the breastbone at chakra 8, just above chakra 4 and below chakra 5, below the clavicle. Beneath this position on the physical body lies the azure, the tiny central control center for the embodied Kathara grid template within the base of the thymus gland. With attention focused in the azure, imagine that a deep azurite crystal sphere is located within the azure. Azure blue in color, and within the azurite crystal lies the throne of power, the center point of the embodied Eka God seed, through which the eternal flame of Amaraya embodies. Imagine now that your awareness is a spark of pale silver Maharic light. As this spark of Maharic light, imagine that you are traveling into the center of the Azure crystal sphere, to the gateway of the Amaraya flame of eternal Christed love. Imagine the Amaraya gateway as a tiny silver Maharic egg, the cosmic Amaraya egg, encased within a deep blue azure spherical standing wave. Imagine that as the eternal Maharic sparks moves to the center of the Amaraya egg within the azurite crystal, you have entered the place of your eternal birthright. You have entered the hallowed ground of your original divine heritage as a living expression of the one God source. The Amaraya egg within the Amaraya gateway and the Manu azurite flame is the eternal still point through which the still small voice of the God self within speaks. Visualize or intend that you, as the spark of Maharic light, are now positioned within the Amaraya gateway, a pale silver spark of light encased within the pale silver Amaraya egg, within the eternal azurite flame of the deep blue azurite crystal sphere, the inner Eka center point of creation. Here, all things are eternally still, eternally calm, and eternally peaceful. This is the sanctuary within, the inner temple of Kamalohate, the eternal safe ground and perpetual guardian of one's personal, eternal, direct relationship to the God source. Inhale Mahara current up from Chakra 13's core and into the Azurite crystal, directly into the Amaraya gateway, through the Azurite flame and into the Amaraya egg. Exhale gently, filling the Amaraya egg with Mahara current. Imagine now that the Amaraya egg has begun to awaken, responding to your intention and your desire to return to at-one-ment within your God self. The Amaraya egg now fills with pulsating, pale, silver Maharic light and expands, growing larger and larger, extending outward to encase your physical body in a beautiful, shimmering egg of eternal life. Imagine that you can sense the living presence of the God Source in your personal God Self everywhere around you. You are encased with this eternal love, mercy, protection, and divine understanding. Imagine that you can see and feel the Amaraya egg fully encasing your physical body, and that an azurite flame of deep blue azurite extends into the room, fully enshrouding you within the Amaraya egg capsule. Extend your imagination to remember that beyond the azurite flame is the azurite crystal sphere. Sense the azurite crystal as extending 20 feet or more around your physical body in the room. You have brought your throne of power directly into the 3D world. You are now the still point. You have brought the Amaraya gateway directly to the doorstep of 3D finite creation. From this point of eternal power and love, you can heal all, understand all, love all, co-create all. Within the Amaraya egg, you and God Source are one. You are now your God Self. Breathe slowly and gently and feel the truth of your God Self, the here, the now, the eternal. Feel the truth of your peace. Acknowledge and fully affirm this strength, repeating out loud the declaration of the God Self. Speak the words of your truth now. I am peace now. I am at one with all. I am in a safe and loving universe now. I am loved and I am love. I am innocent. I am healed. I know my eternal truth now. I am one with God now. I express as God now, and so it is. Speak this truth to every atom and every cell in your physical body. Speak this truth strongly and continue until you have generated a critical mass of energy and intention that is strong enough to call to silence, surrender, and healing all shadow voices of fear and limitation. Repetition of this truth will build the reality of its strength from a tangible, impermeable, living wave of eternal truth, love, and power. Inhale deeply, drawing Mahara current up again to the Azare at the thymus gland. Exhale Mahara current into the Azare. And feel the Mahara current rapidly expand to every atom and cell in your physical and emotional body. The Mahara current is the carrier wave through which your affirmation of eternal truth is carried into every part of your being. Notice now if there's any tension or fear or discomfort, unease, mental, emotional, physical distraction occurring within your being. Pay attention to how your body feels and seek out areas of self that are resisting the spoken truth of the God self within. When you locate an area of resistance, focus your attention directly upon it and mentally restate your divine conviction. I am the voice of peace. I am the voice of knowing. I am the voice of God's self. I address thee and send to you now from my unlimited store of power any love and healing that you may require. Again, inhale Mahara current up into the Azare point. Exhale the Mahara carrier wave into the Azare, allowing it to carry your stated gift of healing and love to every area of your being. Imagine that you are directing part of the Mahara carrier wave directly to the discovered areas of resistance. Breathing several Maharic breaths into and through the Azare throne of power, sending the gift of love and healing to all disharmonic energies within you. Take a deep inhale of Mahara current into the Azare and hold the breath for as long as comfortably possible, while mentally affirming, I decree the following intention from this, my throne of power. Exhale forcibly and feel your entire body, every atom, every cell, poise itself in readiness to receive the divine instruction. You can now out loud affirm the following. I return now to my world of intention. In a calm and centered peace and productivity. I command now the silence of the eternal God mind. I embrace the stillness within. I go forth now in joyous victory. So it is decreed, so it is done. To Asia and to Dore. Inhale Mahara current directly from the Azure. Then exhale forcefully, using the exhale breath to expand the Maharic wave disk outward from the Azure, extending its perimeter to touch the inside of the Amareya egg around your physical body. Inhale and imagine that the Maharic disk is now contracting within the inhale breath, drawing the Amareya egg, azurite flame, and azurite crystal back into the Azure. Exhale once more into the Azure, using the exhale breath to deposit your throne of power back into its home station within the Azure. Sense and feel the loving power that lies always now within you. In times of stress, you can draw a Maharic breath into the Azure and the Azurite crystal to stimulate and reactivate the God, Self, Truth affirmation wave. I'm going to go into awakening the flame of the Amareya. Might be a good time for stretch. Stand up and stretch for just a moment. Okay, why don't we get started? Ask you again to sit down and just relax. Okay, again, I invite you to close your eyes. And the best way of quieting the body is to quiet the breath. So just begin to relax your breath, slow it down. I'm going to begin by imagining the place within the center of your brain where the small, dimly lit circular room with the descending spiraling staircase resides. Placing the focus of your mental attention into the small, circular room, and feeling the sensation of being within the room. Feeling the sensations. Imagine yourself standing within the circular room at the brain center. Then visualize or intend that your imaginary body, standing in the circular room, turns to the right from the position in which it was standing. After turning to the right, imagine now that a spiral staircase appears before you. This staircase ascends upward and has 36 steps. Imagine that the circular room is physically real and that your physical body is standing within it. With your eyes closed, sense with your physical and mental bodies the entrance to the ascending spiral staircase. If the spiral staircase were to magically open up right now, emerging from your physical body and into the room, it would always appear directly to the right of your physical body. Sense this area to the right of your physical body from which the staircase would emerge. This area represents the natural density 2 departure point for all beings carrying the human or indigo divine blueprint template. Again, if you can't sense it, imagine that is there, opening, ascending upward to the right side of your physical body. Once you have located or imagined the density 2 departure point, move the focus of your mental attention to this area of your body and imagine that your awareness is now poised at the bottom stair of the ascending spiral staircase. The staircase extends upward from your density 2 departure point into an area that resembles a golden tunnel. You can sense this location with the handrail, feeling, reaching out, grasping it. With your physical palms resting in your lap, sense the feeling of the handrail within the palm of your physical right hand, and physically grasp the invisible handrail with your right hand while it rests loosely on your lap, now modeling the grasping gesture. Again, the handrail will be your guide as you prepare to ascend the spiral staircase to the awakening room above. Using the imagined sensation of the handrail in your right palm, imagine that your mental awareness slowly begins to walk up the stairway, counting each step in front of you as you slowly ascend from 1 to 36. The 36th step is the top, and that leads directly into the density 2 indigo violet awakening room, which is the Ecka God Seed center point, the azurite crystal, and the inner temple of Kamelohate. Now imagine that you're standing on the 36th step, and release the handrail while allowing your hand to relax in your lap. You may still experience the very visual sensory data as you enter the indigo violet awakening room. Imagine that you are stepping from the 36th step to the aquamarine and amethyst tile floor of the awakening room, while imagining the awakening room as a circular aquamarine and amethyst tiled cave that is brightly lit with undulating rays of gold, indigo, and violet. In the center of the awakening room, there is an ancient yellow gold chalice, often called the Holy Grail, that rises up from the floor to the height of about 4 feet. Imagine that you are slowly walking forward with one hand extended to feel your way along through the blinding light rays as if moving through the light field of a sun. Continue to sense that you are walking forward in the awakening room until your extended hand touches the golden raised chalice in front of you. When you reach the golden chalice, imagining that you are reaching forward to retrieve something that sits inside the upper bowl of the golden chalice. Imagine that you are reaching down into the upper golden bowl, searching with your fingers to locate the small object which is just awaiting your retrieval. The object is a very deep blue azurite crystal, spherical in form, about the size of a large marble, with a sparkling, rough textured surface covered in minute azurite crystal cluster points. The azurite crystal is the door key to your density 2 etheric soul body. Imagining picking up the azurite crystal in your right hand, while modeling this hand gesture with your physical right hand as it rests in your lap. Sense the size, the weight, the texture, and temperature of the azurite crystal with your physical hand, as if the invisible object were there. Inhale, pale silver Mahara current up from Earth's core into your body through the central vertical core to the azurite point in chakra 8 at the base of the thymus. exhaling the Mahara current from the Azure down your right arm into your palm and into the crystal. Do take 3 breaths, energizing the azurite crystal as you do with each breath. Sense now that the azurite crystal is now glowing and pulsating with an aura of pale silver gold light. You may see this pale silver gold aura around the azurite crystal in your inner vision, and may sense the weight of the crystal in your palm growing less heavy. You may also sense nothing, but even so, the azurite crystal is now activated. With your eyes closed, move your physical right hand, imagining the activated azurite crystal within to the azure point. Cup your hand over the azure point, as if the invisible crystal was positioned between your palm and the body. Inhale a Maharic breath up to the azure, and exhale down your right arm into your palm and through the crystal. As the breath carries the Maharic frequency into your body, there may be a sensation of mild buzzing in the azure, as the data key stored in the azurite crystal moves into a corresponding lock 6 on the density 2 etheric soul body. If you do not feel the buzzing sensation, send a few more breaths there. And even if you do not feel the buzzing, know that this is activated. As the data key releases, imagine that your body absorbs the entire azurite crystal, removing it from your palm and transferring the crystal into the etheric lock 6 at the azure. Let your right hand rest gently in your lap while shifting your mental focus to the physical azure, where the crystal has entered. Imagine now that you can sense the weight and gentle buzzing of the azurite crystal within your physical body in the azure. The crystal now rotates slowly and pulses in a gentle rhythm, on every pulsation releasing a pale silver, gold, azure blue. A wave of frequency that contains a natural activation code, mathematical program for your density 2 etheric soul body. Become aware of each gentle pulse of the subtle azure wave field as it emanates from the azure of the thymus and spreads outward in all directions through every atom in your body, giving your D2 etheric soul body field its ancient wake-up call. Relax and breathe slowly for a few moments to get in touch with the presence of the pulsating azurite waves. Know that they're there, even if you can't sense their presence. Your D4 astral atomic etheric body does sense them, and it does respond accordingly. Next, inhale Mahara current up to the azure. Then exhale the current within the azure to form a tiny, pale silver Maharic spark within the azure. Taking 2 more Maharic exhale breaths, expanding the azure. While observing the sensation of the Maharic egg expanding in your azure. Taking another breath, this time inhaling Maharic current directly from into the Maharic egg, and using a forceful exhale breath to burst the Maharic egg, while releasing and pushing the rays of Maharic current throughout your entire body and outward to your auric field. Focusing your attention on the azure where the azurite crystal entered the body, slowly inhaling Maharic current upward from the earth's core to the azure. Initiating an activation breath, inhaling Maharic current into the azure, holding this breath for a moment, and exhaling slowly using the exhale breath to push more Mahara current into the azurite crystal. Returning to a relaxed, normal breathing. You can wait for a subtle pop sensation, or perhaps a sense of expansion or warmth, as the azure lock seal releases, feeling the density 2 D4 atomic etheric body for merger with the activated density 1 silver sanctum Eros flame. The azure passage extending between the density 1 and density 2 body azure points is now opened, and the azurite crystal is activated. As the azure lock seal releases, you may or may not experience a momentary sense of heat waves rising from the neck through the head, or perhaps cranial pressure inside or surrounding the skull as the D6 mental body capsule opens and expands into the density 2 etheric soul body. The etheric soul body exists as a D4 ear A plus man A primal current energy field within and surrounding every atom, which extends like a form-fitting pale blue and violet gold energy spacesuit around the entire physical body. Relax and breathe gently with eyes closed and imagine the etheric body spacesuit or density 2 body replica. Imagine that you can see its pale blue, violet, and gold form sitting within your physical body in exactly the same position as your physical. Once the azure passage has been opened, through the release of the azurite crystal dimension lock 6, the D6 mental body field opens into the density 2 radial body Eros field, causing the polarized D5, D7 Eros to depolarize to a D12 Manu Rion field. The density 2 body is thus prepared to receive the frequencies of the fully activated azurite crystal and the density 2 Amareya flame Akasha body, or the transharmonic Amareya flame body. Relax and breathe slowly, while focusing the mental body on the azure point in the physical body. Imagining your consciousness as a spark of pale silver Maharic light placed within the azurite crystal at the central pale silver Amareya egg throne of power within the azurite flame inside of the azurite crystal sphere. With your attention focused in the Amareya egg of the azure, give the mental command shift now to the density 2 etheric soul body vehicle, while imagining your etheric soul body moving out to the right of your density 1 physical body, with the silver spark of your consciousness placed within the brain center of the density 2 etheric soul body. From the etheric soul body, the transharmonic Amareya central Man-U eternal flame and 6-dimensional silver sanctum within and surrounding the density 1 and 2 density 2 bodies can be activated. Using the vertical breathing rhythm of running the Mahara current within your physical body, you will move the silver spark into the density 2 etheric soul body. Inhaling Mahara current up from the core and into the azure. Exhaling the Mahara current into the azurite crystal at the azure, using the breath to direct the azurite crystal horizontally to the right as it moves with the breath into the azurite cord and into the density 2 etheric soul body. Imagining that the deep azure blue azurite crystal is now nestling comfortably within the azure point of the etheric body. Bringing your attention to the pale silver spark of the pineal gland of the etheric body, inhale in the physical body, then exhale forcefully, while imagining that the silver spark rides the breath current, moving rapidly down from the etheric pineal into the azurite crystal at the body azure point. When the silver spark intersects with the azurite crystal, A momentary density 2 etheric flaring occurs as the azurite crystal bursts into a small, deep, azure blue Manu flame about 2 3/4 inches high within the etheric body azure. Inhale, then exhale, and imagining the deep azure blue Manu Amareya flame spreads throughout every atom of the density 1 and density 2 etheric bodies, turning the pale, blue, violet, and gold density 2 etheric soul body into a brilliant, glowing, shimmering, pale silver blue, a transharmonic etheric akasha body as the density 1 and density 2 silver sanctums unite. Focusing your attention on the small Amareya Manu flame at the etheric soul body azure, and inhale using the inhale breath to draw the Amareya flame through the azure cord and into the physical body azure point. Exhaling forcefully, using the exhale breath to push the Amareya flame down to the 13th chakra. When the Amareya flame enters the chakra seals of chakra 13, the Amareya flame momentarily flares, filling every atom in the physical and soul body with deep, azure blue, Amareya, divine blueprint frequency. Sense the release of the Amareya wave. Within the physical body is a gentle expansion of eternal heat, emerging from the azure that moves simultaneously in all directions throughout the physical body. With attention focused on the Amareya flame at chakra 13, prepare to inhale deeply and simultaneously from 2 directions in the 2-point breathing of the Amareya activation. Inhale simultaneously, breathing density 2 indigo frequency down from the 14th chakra above the head, while at the same time breathing silver Mahara current and the Amareya flame upward from the earth core, bringing the 2 currents of energy into union within the azure. Do this 2-point breathing a few times. On this final 2-point inhale, focus your attention on the inside of the Amareya flame at the azure. Then exhale forcefully, using the exhale breath to rapidly expand the Amareya flame from within the azure outward until the Amareya flame is fully expanded. Moving several feet into your auric field, forming a pale silver blue 6-dimensional transharmonic akasha inner silver sanctum body capsule. Direct your attention back to the etheric soul body positioned to the right of your physical body. Inhale, drawing the etheric soul body horizontally back into the physical. When the 2 bodies rapidly and fully align, the activated Amareya flame transharmonic akasha capsule will momentarily flare as the Amareya phase locks within both density 1 and density 2 physical bodies. The transharmonic akasha Amareya seal flame and the azurite crystal are now fully activated. Okay, the last flame body technique that we're going to do is called the Amareya DNA buffer. As you call to mind the Akasha symbol, Okay, someone suggested we just take a break. Is that the general consensus? All right, just take a stretch for just a minute.